Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if reincarnated as the firstborn of the Uchiha main family part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. The one and only thing she does not and cannot remember from her past is how she had died. Dulls her memory it does, but never does it sate her curiosity. Did she die with a knife plunged between her ribs and into her heart? Was she burnt to nothing more than crisps by standing too close to explosive tags? Maybe she'd aged gracefully into her years until she'd died a fulfilled life. Or perhaps she had fallen into a river after being injured, and hindered by her wounds she had drowned. She does not and cannot remember, not in the way she remembers blue eyes and bright dreams, or dark hair and darker eyes, and the earth rumbling and splitting and shattering under fists forged from the hardest of diamonds, or the red, bleeding moon strung up high above the sky. But she supposes it doesn't matter, not anymore, for death has withdrawn its clawed fingers from her cold remains, and has skidded away just far enough for the color to rush back into her skin, for blood to roar through her veins once more, and for her tongue to prickle and tingle with a peculiar yet deliciously familiar taste. Ah yes, life. She tastes life on the tip of her tongue and along the seam of her lips, and it tastes absolutely glorious. There she feels it, there. Her chest is thudding and pounding and convulsing with something she had long ago believed to be withered and blackened and gone. The sensation is almost painful, and she revels in the delirious ecstasy of it, for her heart has started to beat again. Slowly but steadily it picks up its pace. Her death no longer matters, so instead, she knows how she is born, or reborn, with a clarity that is all too sharp. Haruno Sakura had died. But now, she is alive once more. She is born with a single piercing cry, and her eyes are open. Her eyes are open, and they are burning. Her eyes are open, and they bleed red. Her eyes are open, and both spins with the pattern of a Tutomo Sharingan. Because she has seen it all. She's seen the dark. She's seen the brightness in one little spark. She's seen children with paper hearts play with lit matches. She's seen souls old and young perish to nothingness amidst black flames. She's seen grasping hands claw at dancing dreams only for them to clutch at empty air. She's seen blood sink into a canvas of corpses like crimson ink. To want more would be greed, because there is nothing left for her to see. And so her Sharingan spins, and spins. Cries of shock rises from the medics, and the Uchiha clan echoes them. Uchiha Fugaku had expected a boy. He had wished for one. A beautiful baby boy, one with dark hair and darker eyes just like any other Uchiha. A baby boy with the strength and skill to match his beauty. He and Mikoto had even decided on the name Itachi. Instead, they conceive a daughter. A baby girl, one indeed beautiful with her sweet nose and pale skin, one indeed with dark hair that is completely devoid of his own dark brown and instead is the solid black of Mikoto's ink hair, but it's a girl. He might have been a little agitated at first, because damn it, he wants a male for an heir. But he is certain that he will settle down not long after though. An Uchiha is an Uchiha nonetheless, and Fugaku is a master at adapting. If only that is the only problem he has to worry about. Oddly, she cries only once, and remains silent very shortly after. A tender sheet of chakra pulsates forth from her tiny form and fans out across the room like a tentative wave washing ashore, and when she blinks again, her Sharingan is swallowed. Another wave of unease rolls over him when he catches sight of her eyes. Absent of the Sharingan, one is now the common onyx of most Uchiha, but the other, her right eye, is the shade of the brightest jade and spring and life. She seems content enough not sleeping but looking around the room with those strange mismatched eyes instead. He notices that some of his clansmen fidget uncomfortably when her gaze meets theirs. There is an uncanny shrewdness and intelligence in her quiet observation, and he would never admit aloud that it both pleases him and unsettles him at the same time when her eyes land on his. Hers are not the eyes of a newborn, and he does not remember any green-eyed relatives. The maelstrom of emotions almost knocks him off his feet, and even when it subsides, if only a little bit, Fugaku still does not know if he should feel pride or trepidation. For the clan, though, it is easier. In her, they sense the wilted petals of the old era, and the blossoming bud of something grand new. She is the strength and future of the Uchiha clan. She will reinstate them back to the unbridled glory they once withheld. In her, they see hope. Mikoto names her Sakura, and while Fugaku is not too fond of awfully generic names, there's a strange rightness to it all, from the way Mikoto stares at him with no-nonsense eyes that won't have it any other way, and how their baby's dusty latches flutter with something close to approval. Or maybe she's equally appalled, he's not completely sure. Sakura, huh? Sakura, Uchiha Sakura, Fugaka says aloud, testing the name on his lips, awed in the way it rolls right off his tongue. He repeats it again, and this time, every word is crisp and firm in his resolution. Hail, Uchiha Sakura, heiress and firstborn of the Uchiha. Hail, Sakura-sama, his kindred chorus. One by one, the members of the Uchiha clan drop to their knees gracefully and perform proper kowtows, pressing their foreheads to the cool tatami-layered floor. In this moment obviously reserved for the clan only, and with no more space left for them in the Uchiha delivery room, the medics spare various glances of intrigue and apprehension before shuffling out through the doorway, no doubt eager to spread news of the Uchiha matriarch's successful childbirth. The rest of the Uchiha then rise, and after congratulating the young couple, they also take their leave. The red steely gaze of the newborn will be forever imprinted on the back of their eyelids. They all know she is destined for unimaginable greatness. Uchiha Mikoto knows that she has given birth to a legend. When her daughter opens her red eyes and a trickle of raw chakra slithers out like a newborn snake, Mikoto is equal parts terrified and awed. She has never seen or heard of any Uchiha born with the Sharingan or any infant with even marginally developed chakra coils, until now, it seems. The medics announce that she is an indisputable medical miracle. Mikoto refrains from peeling her lips back from her teeth and outright snarling at them because she can see their hungry, greedy eyes seeking out her infant daughter, desiring to snatch her away from her weakened arms and lay her down on the operating table so they can whip out their gleaming scalpels and cut her open like some goddamn test rat. She takes deep, soothing breaths. She distantly registers her husband rubbing gentle circles across her shoulders, before slipping away from her side with a murmur that the Uchiha elders has asked for his presence. Grounded by the weight in her arms, she barely takes notice. Her whole body is still aching and sore. Childbirth is one of the oldest and most dangerous practices women partake in, and there is no doubt that she needs a well-deserved long, restful nap. Right now, though, she is content with holding her still-awake baby to her chest and feeling her lighter heart drum in sync with her own. It is a novel experience. She knows that Fugaka had wished for a boy while she herself had not minded either way. Secretly, though, she had harbored slightly higher hopes for a baby girl. A girl, so Mikoto could comb her hair and entwine it with colorful silk ribbons. A girl, so Mikoto could doll her up and dress her in robes made of the finest fabrics. A girl, so Mikoto could take her little hand in hers and pick the prettiest flowers in the Uchiha garden. And so, imagine her delight when the medics had pronounced her baby a girl. She'd been too ecstatic to mind Fugaka's evident disgruntlement. And then, imagine her concern and alarm when her baby girl had opened her eyes and out leaked a trickle of chakra. And now, imagine her disappointment and dread that her baby girl isn't the baby girl she's always wanted and. It is a terrible shame and self-loathing that eats away at her insides like acid. Her baby girl doesn't fall asleep. Her baby girl doesn't smile. Her baby girl doesn't cry. Mikoto has never even heard her make any noise once since her birth, and even then, that was only for the need of oxygen. Her eyes are alien features that do not belong on the face of any baby, too cold, too sharp, too indecipherable, too detached. She is a silent baby, and Mikoto feels tiny wintry feet patter a telltale path down her spine as the silence stretches. It isn't a serene kind of silence, nor is it one coiled with volatile energy. Her baby seems to exude an illusory innocuous air in the stillness around her. Calculating eyes sweep across the room and settle on every object, picking them up and turning them inside out and tossing them away over and over again. The eyes of a practiced critic, Mikoto thinks. And then, the very same eyes drift up almost lazily to lock with hers and black meets green meets black. She has never before felt so pathetic, squirming under the scrutiny of her own baby. Do not look away, the eyes seem to say. A jolt shoots through her frame as her breath catches in her throat. Do not be afraid. Don't you know? The eyes are the windows to the soul. And suddenly, Mikoto understands. Because before she is the Uchiha matriarch, before she is a housewife, before she is a mother, Uchiha Mikoto is a ninja first and foremost. Not just any ninja, she is a jonin. It doesn't matter how long she's been on leave, for she has long ago come to know the feeling of blades slicing into skin and of bruises littering split knuckles. She has come to know the wetness of blood freckling her face and of her trusted katana gripped in strong fingers. She has come to know the crunch of splintered bones and of the cries of the determined and desperate and dying. She is an old acquaintance of battle and pain and death. She is an accomplished assassin trained in the art of stealth and murder since her youth, and it will do nobody good to ever forget that. She is a ninja, and she understands. Children are knives, and she can already tell that her own daughter is no exception. They don't mean to, but they cut all the same. And yet those who sire them still cling on, don't they, clasp them tighter and closer even when blood starts to flow. Mikoto is no exception. Sakura, she says to her daughter, even if she knows there is no way her baby can possibly understand. I can sense that you will become a very strong girl, but you have to understand that the road in front of you will be paved with countless difficulties. Each enemy will be deadlier than the last, and to remain victorious, you will have to become faster, stronger, and smarter. It will be a challenging journey, so know and remember that I will be with you every step along the way. We shall grow stronger together. Do you understand? And suddenly, Sakura understands. While there is still softness in her mother's gaze, there is a calculating, bone-chilling sharpness that glimmers just below her thick lashes. Her face seems to be carved from marble. So, this is the true form of the woman who had shaped legends with her own bare hands. It is the first time Mikoto sees her daughter smile. Well, it's more of a twitch of the lips, but to Mikoto, just as she understands that her newborn daughter is a warrior, she also understands that this is her own special equivalent of a smile, and she will forever cherish this eighth of a centimeter twitch. An invisible weight lifts from her heart, and her own smile, complacent and relieved, breaks across the stern lines of her face. Good girl. This is Sakura. The recently made mother flushes pleasantly as her best friend squeals in delight at the bundled lump resting in her arms. Said bundled lump lazily cracks open her eyes to meet pools of curious violet. Her green eye is so strange yet so pretty at the same time. Wonder where she got it from, eh? Kushina remarks, raising a finger to gently poke at Sakura's cheek, only for the baby to suddenly reach out uncannily fast and catch her finger in her own tiny ones. Whoa, is this normal? A rather pensive look flashes across Mikoto's face. From the moment she was born, I knew she was special. Kushina cocks an eyebrow in question, eyes fixated to Sakura who still has her finger in a tight grip. Mikoto casts a discreet glance around their surroundings before continuing in a lower tone. Sakura activated her Sharingan when she was born. Ah yes. Minato told me after he heard from Fugaku. Kushina nods slowly before a furrow crinkles the space between her brows. But shouldn't that be impossible? For a Uchiha to gain access to the Sharingan upon birth? Was certainly unheard of until Sakura, it seems. The Uchiha matron's face scrunches up in her own bemusement. Technically, it should be unfeasible considering the lengths to which we have to go to in order to provoke its activation. For Sakura to have acquired it ostensibly naturally. Atypical, Kushina murmurs. Sakura, for her part, is staring back at the red-haired woman with fervent eyes that look almost hungry. The compelling urge to pull this woman closer into a more intimate proximity is nearly overwhelming, and she can't seem to tear her gaze away. She's completely enthralled. The curve of her lips when she speaks, the way the corners of her eyes crinkle, how her entire face lights up when she smiles for a split second, she sees sun-kissed hair instead of flame red and azure blue eyes instead of dark amethyst. Her heart clenches, and subconsciously, her grip on Kushina's finger tightens to the extent of being uncomfortable. You're a strong baby, Tebane. The red-haired woman winces, pulling away with what looks like more effort than supposedly needed. Mikoto, your baby looks like she's about to start crying. Mikoto peers down and relaxes somewhat when Sakura looks serene and unruffled, as per usual. About that, Sakura doesn't really cry. Huh! But all babies are supposed to cry and all that, Kushina exclaims. Not that I know much about them, you know, since I'm not around too many babies. And most Uchiha babies are not supposed to have the Sharingan when they are born. Sakura is different. Mikoto shrugs with her natural elegance. She's always been a calm baby. She neither fusses tantrums nor throws tantrums. She's all but silent most of the time. That's kinda absurd. But as long as you have it easy, right? I just hope my baby will be half as well behaved. She breaks off abruptly and blushes almost as red as her hair when a sly expression creeps onto her best friend's face. Hey, what's that look for? Minato and we aren't like that yet, Tebane. Mikoto chuckles before they lapse into an easeful silence that is fractured when Kushina coos to Sakura. You look a lot like your mother, you know? Mikoto snorts, unable to hold it in. Nonsense. She's her daddy's girl all the way through. Looks like him and even acts like him, too. Well, her disposition may be reserved and stoic like Fugaku's, but in terms of physical appearance she actually bears a great resemblance to you. Kushina observes. She's got your hair, that one's obvious. And if you squint hard enough, the shape of your eyes. Besides, I bet when she grows up and her face levels out, she's going to have your slender jaw frame, too. Inclining her head, Mikoto regards her baby in a new light thoughtfully. You know, she says to Kushina. You actually have a point there. Kushina preens, looking pleased with herself. I do, don't I? Anyways, I have one very important and very critical question. Mikoto leans in as Kushina beckons her closer, a hand curving over her mouth in secrecy. Did it hurt? It is during dinner when she speaks her first word. How did the meeting go? Mikoto asks her husband, setting a plate of gyoza on the table before settling onto her own zabuton beside her infant daughter. The tear troughs and stress lines on Fugaku's face seem deeper than ever as he replies, looking ever weary. War is rising. Another skirmish with a group of Iwanin broke out this morning. They got away, but the Konoha patrol who clashed with them noted that they were heavily injured and would probably not make it back to their side of the border, so the Sandames sent another group after their trail. Haven't heard any news from them yet. So it's true then, Mikoto says gravely as she delicately dips sweet rice into Sakura's smaller bowl. Iwagakure has successfully infiltrated Kusugakure. HN. The only bright side to all this is the council talking about pushing Minato's inauguration forward. About time, too. Fugaku has grown to greatly respect the man's formidable prowess. That's wonderful news. His wife brightens. Once Minato-kun becomes Hokage, I'm sure many things will change for the better. Besides, Kushina-chan will be so happy. Noha, a tiny voice unexpectedly pipes up from beside her. Mikoto's mouth snaps shut as the two adults both redirect their undivided attention to the third speaker. Exchanging a hopeful glance with her husband, Mikoto turns to her 3-month-old daughter, voice full of quiet excitement. Sakura-chan, did you say something? Fugaku watches intently from his side of the table, fingers tightening around his chopsticks hard enough to snap them in half. A queer, burning sheen glosses over her habitually vacant eyes, and her face is composed of an even deeper somberness than usual as she repeats, Konoha. 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 Her village, her birthplace, her home. She'll fight tooth and nail to defend it till her last dying breath, and this time around, she will not fail again. Mikoto is going to kill him, if this actually works or if she ever finds out, that is. It's the coming-of-age rite of our clan, Fugaku explains. The great fireball technique. Staring at his 2-year-old daughter dubiously, he wonders if he has gone too far overboard this time. She's 2 years old. 2. The number resounds in his mind, loud and sonorous. She's a child, barely a child, and the top of her head just passes his knees by only a few inches and he still dirties his hands occasionally changing her diapers in. But she's had her Sharingan since birth, and if that alone doesn't count as the epitome of true natural power, he doesn't know what is. It doesn't matter if it's half-developed. No Uchiha before her had ever been born with the Sharingan. Her chakra system is more refined than any child of her age he has ever come across. That definitely counts as something, right? Clearing his throat and feeling just a bit more decisive, he beckons her closer to where he is standing on the near end of pier in a random secluded lake he had brought her to. Father and daughter, their reflections are peculiar on the rippling surface of the lake. Her single green eye looks particularly striking. Watch closely, he instructs her before his fingers start to blur, and retaining his right hand in a tiger seal, he inhales deeply, Katan, Gokaki no Jutsu. The resulting fireball is gigantic and completely blots out their view of the other end of the lake. From his peripheral vision, Fugaku notes with mild approval that Sakura's gaze is riveted to his jutsu, flickering flames reflected in green and black eyes, rather than averted from the heat and brightness. Her rather unimpressed visage is a little disheartening, though. He's not giving his all for this jutsu as it is only a demonstration, but he'd like to think that it's still considerably impressive to his 2-year-old daughter. He holds the jutsu for several more seconds before he lets it fade back into the atmosphere. Not my best one, but it'll do for a demonstration. I'll show you the hand seals and you do your best to copy them, Fugaku says, turning back to his daughter. Mi Hitsuji Saru I Uma Tora. Again. Mi Hitsuji Saru I Uma Sakura? To his displeasure, she's turned her back towards him and is facing the lake. Fugaku frowns and is just opening his mouth to reprimand her when she opens her own. The massive expulsion of chakra is so sudden it nearly strikes him down to his knees, and as he watches in bodacious disbelief and incredulity, Sakura cocks her head forward and raises her hand in a tiger seal, and then a thin stream of pale light that gradually thickens to a swirling ball of flame and fire emits from her parted lips. The raging inferno of red and orange that blazes and roils into the clouds is twice the size of his. Intense heat prickles across his skin and sinks to his clothing, a distant roaring sweeps into his ears, and his eyes are mere slits against the vehement radiance. It takes a long moment before it crackles out. Steam drifts from the lake in wisps like masquerading ghouls, and the sheer brightness of the fireball still sears almost painfully at the back of his eyelids. The air around the two of them feels scorched and heavy. Fugaku simply gawks, his normally icy composure completely shattered, and his eyes bulges so drastically a snide little voice in the back of his mind wonders if they are attempting suicide by leaping into the water. To say he is shocked is a drastic understatement. He is completely and utterly floored. There is no better word to describe his current state than dumbfounded. Something that should be impossible is playing out right in front of his own eyes. After a minute or 10, he snaps back to reality with his daughter by his side, looking unsuspecting and innocent as if she hadn't just spat out a ginormous fireball from her own mouth at the timid age of 2. He forcefully stifles the urge to take her by the shoulders and shake her until he can successfully decipher something, anything, from her placid mask. A true Uchiha, he decides instead. Did you use your Sharingan? He then demands. She shakes her head. Let me see them. He notes how fascinating it is to watch the way the red bleeds into her green eye, and then the feeling of being punched repeatedly takes root in his gut when he sees the exact state of said eyes. 3 tomos. 3. How good is your chakra control? He presses on ardently. Good enough, she answers, but really, she's just being modest. While not completely a lie, it certainly is not the truth, because good enough is too mild a way to put it. It is a bona fide statement to say that while her control over chakra is still quite excellent, much to her relief, and will improve by leaps and bounds with more training or meditation, she can tell that it will never exceed far enough to be on the same caliber as her former bodies. One of the many defining skills Harino Sakura once possessed had been her absolute proficiency in chakra control, and reincarnation had taken that from her, lowering her to Shizen's level of control, which fortunately is still prestigious enough and is something she will be happy to work with. Although it truly is quite a pity that, like Shizen, she will never be able to achieve the Byakudo seal now due to the technique being the very pinnacle of chakra control. She does not doubt that she will still be able to shatter earth and punt her opponents into the sky, but there is also no doubt that there will never again appear a purple rhombus on her forehead. To her surprised delight though, her new body holds a rather large chakra reserve for someone her size and age. She gleans explanation from the fact that it most likely also has something to do with her being reincarnated, and even reborn as a Uchiha. Really, of all people. She is shaken out of her musings when Fugaku's eyes wash red as he activates his own Sharingan. Almost as if speaking to himself, he starts muttering under his breath. Quite a sizable amount of chakra you've got there, for someone your size and age, which is what she had gathered as much, astounding. This is incredible. This is truly a commendable feat, Sakura. Hi, Tusama. He wastes little to no time hurrying back to their house with her in tow. To gauge your affinity, he explains, before practically shoving the piece of chakra induction paper at her face in his impatient excitement. Even a tiny prick is enough. Pinching it between her fingers and sending forth a burst of chakra, the paper then ignites, causing her to let go as it turns to ashes in midair and sprinkles down to the ground. Like most Uchiha, you have an affinity for fire. Fugaku nods, evidently pleased. When you mature, I have no doubt that you will be able to master at least one nature. Perhaps, like most Uchiha, lightning. A blend of fire and lightning will lead to a myriad of handy techniques in your arsenal. A contemplative expression steals over his face before he comes to a decision. I've underestimated your talent, it appears so. Your potential is too great to be neglected any longer. I will enroll you into the academy soon. He watches carefully for her reaction, or rather, the lack thereof. There is no change in his daughter's expression, and he feels himself deflate a slight bit. Had he expected her to jump for joy? Shake in excitement? Goggle at him with eyes full of fear? Well, perhaps not, but he had certainly expected something. Because what does it say of him as a parent, when he cannot even tap into her emotions? Certainly nothing pleasant, as he does not have even an inkling what goes on under that unmoved demeanor most of the time. There is no crack in her perfect mask. Thank you, Tusama. She bows instead, and despite himself, his lips quirk up in a smirk wide enough for the both of them. You've got fire in your veins, my daughter, Fugaku says. Show them the power of a true Uchiha. She's 2 years old, Fugaku. Her mother's raised voice travels to her ears even as she sprawls languidly on the bed in her room. 2 years old. 2. Age has no bearing on ability, her father replies, his tone calmer and lower, yet still able to cut through the din in its firmness and decisiveness. She's different. She's special. You've seen it, Makoto, you know so. It's been going on for quite a while now. From the moment Fugaku made his decision of her upcoming enrollment known to his wife, Mikoto's been in an instant opposition. She's not afraid of being vocal about her disagreement, too. You've seen what they do to children during war. Even Konoha throws children out there whenever there's a dearth supply of shinobi. You're right, Fugaku. Sakura is special. And as soon as the rest of the world sees just how special she is, they'll have her tearing through ranks, and before you know it, she'll be right beside you on the battlefield. Sakura suspects that once, the house had been swept into a similar uproar when Mikoto had tried in vain to shield her eldest son. Her mother had probably not argued as fiercely as she's doing now though, because unlike Sakura, Itachi had been fortunate enough to just brush shoulders with war and witness firsthand many of its casualties. It could have been a lot worse. Sakura, though, was born just a year or two before the Third Shinobi War waged and fully broke out. If Fugaku's verdict is assented, there is no way she can escape the warpath, clan heiress or not. As Mikoto had said, even Konoha will throw children into the fray in the face of war. Sakura's talent will not go unnoticed, she won't let them, and she will be fished out of the academy and tossed out onto the battlefield as they see fit. It will not in the least be pleasant. But as much as he loves his wife and daughter, Fugaku has to put the well-being of the whole Uchiha clan in front of anything and everything else. This kind of prodigious talent should be cultivated as soon as possible for it to reach its full potential. If it really comes down to the worst, war will only inure her to the true life of shinobi. She will grow up to become the finest shinobi ever to lead our clan. Fugaku, please. Her mother's voice loses its ferocity and volume, suddenly sounding so worn and weary it makes Sakura's heart ache a little. She finally decides that enough is enough, and slides open the shoji door to pad down the stairs. She's going to the academy, Mikoto, Fugaku says. Not to war. Don't you pretend you don't know just as well as I do that with her talent and with war on the brink of breaking out and with Iwa's population far outnumbering ours, it'll be a miracle she isn't made into a child soldier, Mikoto hisses, and Sakura feels another wave of respect for the woman. She's never seen her mother so defiant and full of fire before. Do you remember what we were doing when we were 2 years old? How can you compromise both her physical and emotional state by thrusting her into warfare at such a young age? How can you stand the thought of our child wetting her fingers in blood? How can you? Because to be able to protect the people precious to me, I will have to grow faster, stronger, fiercer. Mikoto's face slackens as she turns to Sakura, who had ventured into the room with neither of them noticing. A true assassin, a small voice in the back of her mind whispers. There is another presence within you, her daughter continues before her or her husband can get another word out in between. It is not a question, but a self-confirmed statement. You can tell? Mikoto reflexively rests a hand against her stomach as Sakura nods. Loose clothing has hidden her slightly swollen stomach, so she does not know how Sakura could have known. Even though she should be used to her clever daughter after more than 2 whole years, she still finds herself zapped by bouts of surprise from time to time. She can't help it. She doubts anyone can. It's amazing and a little unnerving how Sakura almost seems to know everything about anything. It's a boy. Sakura walks forward, placing her own hand atop Mikoto's. She doesn't question her daughter. There is a rare tenderness in her expression that makes Mikoto want to swoop her up into her arms and tightly embrace her forever, but she doubts that Sakura would appreciate the showy display of affection. So instead, she stoops down and presses her lips to the top of Sakura's head swiftly. Then I guess that means you're going to have a little brother, any? Yes. Sakura's eyes swivel up and the corner of her mouth twitches. Soon. Instantaneously, all her ire is quenched and she loses her fire. Outnumbered, she has no chance. Still, she makes one last stand. Sakura-chan, the life of shinobi is rigorous and grueling. Are you ready to have to undergo it at such a young age? You're a child, Sakura-chan, barely a child. To demand so much from you should be considered inhumane. Are you sure? Kazen, Sakura's voice is gentle yet effective enough to cut off her rambling. I am ready. I am sure. I have tried, I have pleaded, and I have done all I can. Mikoto casts her eyes skyward before closing them. She can't help but feel as if her child has signed her soul to the Shinigami himself. Do not make me regret this, she says bleakly, and even she does not know whom she is addressing. Her husband? Her daughter? Her gods? Herself? There is no answer from any of them as she turns away. The Uchiha children are unbelievably noisy, she finds out to her rising ire. Most of them are older than her, and they keep insisting on getting right up in front of her face, pushing and shoving each other out of the way to snatch her attention, not that they don't already have her entire focus. In fact, she can't ignore them if she tries. She's already tried. Nothing like being poked and prodded like a pet animal. Although it does please her on some level as to being treated like a little kid again, it simultaneously infuriates her to no end. Not for the first time, she wonders if they will all just shut up if she opens her mouth and starts crying. It won't be wholly fake, too. You are so cute. Like, seriously. I heard you're going to be enrolled into the academy soon. Can't you smile once, Sakura-chan? Just once. Please, for me? Why is your eye green? It looks weird. Hey, don't be rude. I'll get him for you, Sakura-chan. Why isn't she smiling? Was that a sneeze? She just sneezed. So precious. Idiot, maybe she's sick. Who are you calling idiot? You're probably the one who infected her in the first place. Do you think she knows how to smile? Cammy, she's never been so humiliated. What's rule number 1? Always be polite to my teachers and my peers. Second rule? Always finish my lunch. Third? Always try my very best. Very good, Mikoto says as they stop at the entrance of the academy. I think you're ready to go. Well, as ready as any 2-year-old can be. Which I still think is far too soon, by the way. Ka-san, Sakura sighs in exasperated fondness. Why do I get the feeling that you're even more nervous than I am? Because I am, her mother exclaims, actually wringing her hands. It's the first time I'm not going to be able to keep you by my side all day, so it's only natural that I worry. Besides, you're going to be the youngest and smallest among your classmates. I am the heiress of the Uchiha clan, Sakura says with definitely more confidence than Mikoto feels at the moment. I do not think that anyone will be brave or foolish enough to pick on me. Her mother's expression darkens. I don't know, Sakura-chan. Children can be so cruel these days. You're going to meet some with domineering personalities, the bold, the loud, the obnoxious, those who noisily stake their claims in your territory and everywhere else they mark and set foot on. I won't let them cross my border, Sakura assures her. They won't dare. Hold on, Mikoto says hastily. I'm not saying you should scare them all off and not make any friends, because making friends is a good thing. You don't have to find too many, just the ones who truly care for you and will stick with you though thick and thin. Is that what Kushina-san is to you? Sakura asks curiously. Mikoto's expression instantly softens. Yes, Kushina-chan is my best friend. A bell chimes before either of them can say another word, signaling for students to start settling into their seats. Oh, I will not have my daughter late on her first day of school. Bending down, Mikoto straightens Sakura's clothes and smoothens her hair. Now off you go, before I change my mind and haul you back home. Don't forget it's classroom 104. Stretching up on her toes, Sakura presses an affectionate peck to her mother's cheek before backing away with a hand raised in farewell. See you after school, Ka-san. I'll be there, Sakura-chan. Mikoto tries for a cheery grin, but it only comes out as anxious and crooked and just slightly deranged. When her daughter is about to turn the corner, her mouth moves before her mind can catch up. Wait, Sakura-chan. Sakura stops and glances back over her shoulder. Mikoto bites her bottom lip, staring at her daughter. She still can't quite believe that all of this is really happening. Her daughter is entering the academy at 2 years old. 2 years old. Her tiny daughter is going to learn how to be an assassin. Yes, Ka-san? Sakura calls, starting to look a little impatient. Mikoto mentally shakes herself. She cannot lose her composure at a time like this. Even if Sakura may not know so, she will always need somebody to cheer her on by the sidelines as she becomes the strongest of them all, and Mikoto just knows she will be. Letting out a sheepish laugh, Mikoto replies, remember the 3 rules. Even from the distance, her sharp eyes catch Sakura's mouth twitching in a smile of acknowledgement and perhaps amusement, and then she is rounding the corner, dark hair and gray clothes disappearing from her view. She lingers on her spot several more minutes before lightly sighing again, and then Mikoto turns back to walk home alone. And if people stare and whisper behind her back, she will insist the reason is because it's the first time a certain mismatched-eyed girl is not walking on the streets beside her, or because her swollen stomach is getting noticeably larger with each day, certainly not because of the glum and forlorn expression she wears on her face. That's what she tells herself, anyway. They stare too long and too hard at her eyes, and while she knows that they are curious about their mismatched state, she also knows that it's partly because they almost expect to see the Sharingan gleaming back at them. She takes a seat at the front just as a man walks in. My name is Funino Daikoku, he says. You may call me Daikoku-sensei. Daikoku-sensei, she remembers from her time, is a man as pleasant and friendly as his appearance suggests. A fairly large man with brown hair and a goatee, A jocular grin splits his face from ear to ear. He is the kind of teacher who puts students at ease, and in that way he reminds her of Yamano Irika. It's a shame he died a painful death from being crushed by giant chunks of falling debris, shielding his students with his own body when the academy building had collapsed. Irika had been found in a similar state beside his colleague, and a part of Uzumaki Naruto had died along with his father figure that devastating day. Sakura remembers holding him close as he fell apart in her arms. She will make sure that history does not repeat itself. There are quite a few clan members in her class ranging from Inuzuka to Hyuga. There is only one other Uchiha besides her, an older male whom she does not recall ever seeing before. The Uchiha had been forced to gather into their own district along the outskirts of Konoha only after the Kyuubi's attack, and so the main family, her family, now has an entire compound close to the center of the village all to themselves. While some members have stayed, most houses are empty since the previous inhabitants chose to move out to other parts of the village. So, as of now, most of her clan's members are scattered all over the village, which is probably the reason why she hasn't seen much of the others. The boy dips his head respectfully to her, and she inclines her own. Daikoku instructs the class of 23 students to stand up one by one and introduce themselves. "My name is Uchiha Sakura," she says when it's her turn. "I will be turning 3 years old this year. It's a pleasure to meet you all." Simple and concise, yet it doesn't stop their goggling. She doesn't begrudge them for it, though. Children their age are naturally curious, and in this case, they have a very good reason to be. Her height immediately distinguishes her from the rest of the class, and with at least a 5-year gap, the baby fat still clinging to her cheeks and short limbs are unmistakable. Furthermore, she is the heiress of the most notable clan in their village, and already the whispers of her flabbergasting and astonishing stunts have spread far and wide from house to house. Daikoku starts off their lessons by making them memorize the geography in various smaller villages of Hai no Kuni, to the majority's dismay. Sakura, however, clearly belongs in the minority. Namikaze Minato had set the highest scores in the academy, and if she remembers correctly, Uchiha Itachi had followed a close second. Twirling the pencil between her fingers with hidden glee, she can't help but think how much fun she's going to have topping them all. Her gaze hones down to the paper on her desk, and she is mildly surprised to see how much more advanced it is when she'd first taken the test in her timeline. Apart from Tanzakagai and Otafukagai, there are towns on the map that had not existed in her timeline. She comes to the conclusion that the Third Shinobi War had probably destroyed them all even before she'd been born. With the promise that they will start on Tsuchi no Kuni tomorrow, Daikoku leads them outside the classroom and onto the training grounds. Much to the students' delight, he begins to hand out shuriken and kunai, directing them to their own target board. The war truly must be progressing at an alarming rate, Sakura thinks with a heavy heart as she steps forward to receive her share of weapons. As you probably know, children normally enter the academy at age 6 to 8, Daikoku says to her as he leads her to her own board. Entering it at just 2 years old makes you a very special case. You're the youngest ever to enter with Hataki Kakashi following, and if you prove just to be as talented as he is, you'll graduate just as early, if not earlier. They halt in front of her target. "I expect great things from you, Sakura-kun." "Hi, sensei." She fits a shuriken between her fingers and throws it, but even before it has fully left her hand, she can already tell that something is off with her aim. It whistles through the air before sinking into the board, just an inch from the bullseye. Her brows draw together in a frown. It seems that she's gotten a bit sloppy in her long period of non-use. Her wrists are a little stiff and her fingers are too tense. How distasteful. Daikoku clearly has very divergent thoughts on her performance, though. "Wonderful!" he gushes, his goatee almost quivering in his excitement. "While most students cannot even hit the board, you nearly hit dead center on your first attempt." Daikoku, she had long ago discovered, is apparently a man of many words. His voice only manifesting as a buzzing in the corner of her subconscious, she rotates and shakes her wrists, flexing her fingers. Palming a kunai in her grip, she takes aim again, this time exhaling a quiet hiss through her teeth before flicking her wrist. The weapon thuds into the bullseye with a satisfying thwack. Stunning. The man's whisper of awe draws her attention back to him. His eyes wide and shining with delight, he continues, "Tell me, Sakura-kun, did your mother teach you?" "Uchiha Mikoto?" "Yes, Mikoto-san." Daikoku's eyes light up at the mention of the Uchiha matriarch. Her skills with Shurinkenjutsu are unparalleled and second to none, truly. Interesting. She tucks the little slip of information into the back of her mind. "My mother did not teach me," she answers. "Practice does not make perfect, as many believe the trite saying. Practice simply reduces imperfection. Talent is a gift which everyone possesses, yet some fail to explore and sharpen it to its prime." You're absolutely right, Sakura-kun. Daikoku beams. Nonetheless, I am unsurprised that you've inherited her adeptness with the art. Speaking of Mikoto-san, I have a little something to say to her. I could pass it along, if you wish, Sakura offers, already suspecting the contents of his message. Ah, but it would be better if I clear it up to her face to face. She should be fully informed on this one. His grin gains a sly edge. Wouldn't hurt to see a pretty face, too. Sakura inwardly cringes. When the class is herded back to the classroom for lunch, Sakura is glad that nobody approaches her as she eats her meal, even if she does catch several glances borderline on curiosity and wariness. If what she thinks Daikoku is going to say to her mother is accurate, she won't be staying here too long. She has no time to forge meaningless bonds lest they distract her from her aspirations. As the end of the day draws closer, they move on to kata. For once, Sakura finds her mind pleasantly blank as she stretches her muscles and limbs to their limits, feeling ounces of stress and other unpleasantries ease out of her form through her fluid movements. Everything is going as planned. She has no need to worry and fret, for now, anyways. Daikoku reminds them to bring water bottles for sparring tomorrow before dismissing them. He then walks Sakura to the front steps of the building, and Mikoto's smile drops when she sees the man beside her daughter. Daikoku-san. Mikoto inclines her head. It's been a long time. Yes, it has. He executes a short bow. No doubt dinner is at home waiting, so I shall keep this short. The reason I am here is because I would like to discuss something with you. Presumably concerning my daughter, any? Mikoto directs a look at Sakura of what she hopes is exasperated fondness, but what is conveyed is more or less thinly veiled weariness. Your daughter has demonstrated prodigious talent today in our class, Daikoku tells her. On the very first day? Mikoto asks, treading carefully. Just what did you have your class do on their very first day in the academy? War is on the brink of breaking. There is a touch of hardness that Sakura has never heard from him before, and she has to remind herself that this jolly plump man before her is a chunin. Everyone knows that the other villages have always envied Konohagakure, and the Sandaime Tsuchikige's hatred for Konoha burns as fiercely as one of Fugaku-san's famed fireballs, I'm afraid. There is tension in the village, her mother says. The air grows thick with it. And when war calls, shinobi rise to answer. His voice is austere, and yet Sakura detects a layer of remorse under the solemnity. Iwa's ranks is far greater than ours. Konoha, with our massive shortage of manpower, can spare no man, woman, or child. We cannot afford to spare yours, Mikoto hears. Uchiha heiress or not. You wish to whisk my child away and forge her into a living weapon to use on the battlefield, and you have come to me for my permission. Mikoto's face twists, as a cold smile warps her lips. What on earth makes you think I will assent? In the end, it will not be me who you give your assent to if you continue to resist, Daikoku says. Raw talent like your daughter's is ostentatious, and there is no doubt that people other than I will start to take notice. People stronger than I, much more powerful than I, and 10 times more dangerous than I. They will be nothing short of eager to get their hands on her and shape her into whatever they see fit to benefit Konoha. Do not be foolish enough to think that nobody is watching already. Cease your dogmatic manner this instant, she hisses, eyes flickering between black and red. I speak nothing but the earnest truth. Sakura gives him credit for not flinching and keeping his voice steady. Better to prepare her for the worst than to be forced to give her up at the last second. It will be too late then. She is my baby girl, Mikoto whispers. My tiny, 2-year-old baby girl. Your tiny, 2-year-old baby girl is a prodigy, he says without any smidgen of softness. One who might grow up to be even more dangerous than the son of the White Fang. She is only a child. Already, she can feel herself losing. This marks another battle she cannot win. She is only a child, please, my child. Everyone makes sacrifices in the face of war, Daikoku snaps. The class will be taught taijutsu tomorrow, and should your daughter present another extraordinary performance again, her fate may as well be written in stone. His tone softens as he regains a hold of himself, looking apologetic for losing his composure. War devours us all, Mikoto-san. I am truly sorry. He walks away, gait rigid and stiff, and any notion Sakura has about Funino Daikoku being nothing more than a jovial, pudgy chunin is dispelled. He possesses a surprising amount of callousness, and she wonders why he has not made more effort to advance to a higher rank. He certainly has enough ruthlessness for it. Mikoto's eyes follow his green vest, jagged and bitter, and she is suddenly seized by the urge to chase after him and fall to her knees and beg him not to take her child away, and please don't take my baby away, please. Instead, she turns to her daughter, teeth biting into the walls of her mouth hard enough to draw blood. Let's go home. The walk on the way back is rarefied with a heavy and stifling silence until Sakura opens her mouth, intending to diffuse the tension that has been hovering over the both of them for the past few days. Aren't you proud of me, Ka-san? She asks, gaze square. She knows it's unfair to play on her mother's emotions like this, especially with her pregnancy maturing into the middle stages, but Mikoto needs to come to a decision. One way or another, something has to give. Best be now than too late. Oh, of course I am, Sakura-chan. Her mother nods rapidly, and Sakura is relieved to find her tone scrupulous and honest. It's just she looks ambivalent, voice trailing off as her tongue darts out to wet her lips. Just what, Ka-san? Sakura presses, not unkindly. If you're proud of me, then why are you so displeased? Should you not be happier at the prospect of my rapid progress? Displeased? No, no! Mikoto shakes her head briskly, silken hair whipping around in disarray. You are growing stronger, Sakura-chan, and I am proud, beyond proud. You are showing so much promise and talent, and it is outstanding. Then what is the reason for your discomfort, if I may ask? Sakura asks softly, with the feeling of backing a tentative animal into a corner. Because Mikoto sighs. Because strength comes with a price. You are being ripped away from my arms to take turn in the game of killing and dying, and I cannot bear the thought of it, Sakura-chan, you must understand. A frantic and distraught edge clings to her words. I cannot bear the thought of losing you. Do you have so little faith in my abilities as to suggest that I would die much sooner than later? Sakura inquires, quirking a skeptical eyebrow even as a tangible sphere of warmth expands within her chest. Ah, to be surrounded by a mother's unfathomable love again. I do not think that you will die so easily. Mikoto flashes a wry smile. But then again, when has it ever been up to us? The measure of life and death is beyond mere mortals such as you and I, and in the end, death still claims all. Sakura slips her hand into her mother's. You do not have to worry, Ka-san. Her gaze falls to Mikoto's enlarged stomach. I will grow stronger to protect all my precious people. I know you will. And that is exactly why I worry, Sakura-chan. Mikoto lets out a sad little laugh, lightly squeezing her daughter's hand in her larger one. Sakura looks at her mother quizzically, but when she does not expand on her cryptic vagueness, she continues, Then I will grow so strong that you will never have a reason to worry anymore, I promise you. Mikoto's reply comes in the form of a tightening of her hand around her daughter's, and the action itself screams of wretchedness and desperation, as if holding her to her promise. Neither of them lets go for the remainder of the trip. How was the academy? Fugaku inquires later that night during dinner. Did you make a good impression? Opening her mouth to reply before shutting it again at the disapproving look Mikoto shoots her, she chews furiously and swallows before replying, The threat of war has really got the curriculum moving fast. It's only our very first day and we've already been introduced to Shuriken Jutsu and several easier kata. When Sakura had been enrolled into the academy during her former life, it had taken weeks and weeks of written tests on geography, science, and mathematics before they'd finally moved on to taijutsu and the basic handling of shuriken and kunai. When I went to pick her up after, Daikoku-san was there. He told me that the students will have sparring matches tomorrow, and if Sakura-chan puts on a good performance, they will have her move up to more advanced classes, Mikoto says. Good, good. Fugaku takes a gracious sip of his tea. The students there will be even older and stronger, Mikoto says to Sakura, not before sending a small glare at her oblivious husband. You'll be another step closer to graduation. Sakura nods, poking her chopsticks at her food wordlessly before saying, On another note, I think they should incorporate the rudiments of medical ninjutsu into the program. Her parents blink in surprise. You know, Fugaku says contemplatively with a considering tilt to his head. Senju Tsunade once said something quite similar. It will definitely lower the death rate. Sakura nods. Students should be taught the basics of stitching, disinfecting, and herbal remedies. Those who are interested in more advanced techniques can sign up for the medical program. That's where the problems lie, Fugaku explains. Medical ninjutsu is challenging in the first place. Even the easiest techniques are at least C rank. Most ninjas do not have precise enough control over their chakra to perform those tasks. The other factor is the absence of the greatest medic nin in the world, Senju Tsunade. Judging by the downward pull of his lips, Fugaku isn't very fond of the woman at the moment. He isn't the only one. Sakura knows that many scorn the slug princess for being an irresponsible coward, neglecting her duties to the village. She only manages to bite back the words she wants to lash out with to defend her mentor just in time. Ever since she left, the numbers of Konoha's medics have been slowly dwindling either from the lack of knowledge, aptitude, or resources, he says, shaking his head. Nevertheless, our hospitals are still ahead of other hidden villages. Sakura knows all this, of course. She just needs to raise the awareness of others, too. From this discussion, am I right to surmise that you have developed an interest in medical ninjutsu? Mikoto asks. Hi, Ka-san. I believe that it will aid me in great times of need, and will be another step to ensure my growth as a shinobi. I've decided to make several trips to the library to bring back a few scrolls to look over. Her parents exchange bemused glances. It's the first time they've seen her so ebullient. 2 years old and already thinking like a true shinobi. Fugaku can't help but beam with the radiance of 1,000 suns. My daughter indeed. 2 years old and already, Mikoto cuts herself off, inhaling sharply. A moment later, she sniffs daintily. She's my daughter too. No doubt she's inherited my brains and intellect. Her husband raises his teacup to his lips and hides a smirk behind the porcelain surface. Even before the first shaft of sunlight has stretched across the sky, she is already up and arduously making up for all the time she's lost. She limits herself to taijutsu only, for she does not want to run the risk of exhausting her chakra reserves by carrying out strenuous tasks her undersized body is not yet ready to perform. How humiliating it would be to tire out even before the day has truly begun. Only when dawn inevitably encroaches upon the village does she allow herself to return to her bed. True to his words, the very first thing Daikoku does this morning is to lead the class out to the training grounds for their taijutsu matches. The class follows him with such alacrity and avidness that they amuse Sakura with their hyperactive antics. In the end, she is partnered up with another girl whose name she has already forgotten and whose snowy eyes blatantly give her away as a hyuga. Her forehead is bare and unblemished from the caged bird curse seal. The girl flashes a slight smile that she returns with a nod. Form the seal of confrontation, Daikoku instructs as the both of them step up when it is their turn. They are the last pair. Mitsuha-kun, remember that this is a strictly taijutsu-only spar, so please refrain from using your Byakugan or any special abilities you've acquired from your clan. The same goes for your Sharingan, Sakura-kun. And you may start now. The girl immediately charges forward, a fist already cocked back. Predictable, Sakura thinks as she steps aside to avoid the punch effortlessly, letting her tumble past. Her opponent's blows are sloppy and poorly timed, and so far she is proving to be nowhere near Niji's level when he'd been an academy student. However, Sakura muses when she stoops to let a hand fly over her head, and Mitsuha twists fast enough to avoid face-planting the ground when she loses her footing. She might just give Hinata a bit of a hard time when she'd been in the academy, but probably only because Hinata had been too meek and gentle-natured. True, the girl is taller and larger and several years her senior. Her unique stance suggests that she has already started her training in the Juken style. But what Sakura lacks in size and height she more than makes up for in speed and agility. Not to mention she has decades of real battle experience in her arsenal, and perhaps that is what helps most of all. It is too easy to make use and take advantage of her diminutive size. She might have trouble maneuvering these toddler limbs at first, but after more than 2 years of stretching various muscles and popping random joints like a puppeteer might at a marionette, to say that she's quite proud that she's adjusted rather well will suffice. Unexpectedly, after Sakura once again slides beneath another fist, Mitsuha suddenly draws back, panting and flushed with exertion. Do not play around with me like this, she spits between unsteady breaths. Eyebrows drawn down in a scowl, the veins around her eyes threaten to pulse in her evident displeasure. Only then does Sakura realize that for all her evasive choreography, she's also unintentionally managed to offend her opponent. She is like an elusive mosquito that cannot be swatted away. I apologize, Hyuga-san, she replies. It was not my intention to make you feel belittled. Somewhat mollified, Mitsuha jerks her head in a stiff nod before lunging back at her. This time, Sakura doesn't just dance away from the blow. She ducks under the outstretched arm and slams a fist into her unguarded ribs. The girl gasps and stumbles away, eyes wide with surprise and pain. She must not have expected so much power behind such a tiny fist. Sakura is suddenly highly aware of the many eyes trained on her, Daikoku's in particular. It's flattering, since she's never merited much attention during her youth. Her teammates had garnered so much fixation and raptness that there were many times that she'd felt like a speck of dust lost in the vast sea of their brilliance. Not anymore. Never again. It's now your turn to get a good look at my back. When Mitsuha dives to the ground in an attempt to sweep her legs out from underneath, Sakura nimbly hops away and spins in a roundhouse kick. To Mitsuha's credit, the girl throws herself to one side just in time so that her foot only grazes her shoulder. The action itself is graceless and clumsy, yet she successfully avoided the brunt of the kick. Now that Sakura starts to deal her own series of offensive strikes, Mitsuha quickly finds herself on defensive, desperate and unable to find any openings. All it takes is one misstep and a swift, adroit hook to the ankle before she finds herself sprawled on her back, spots dancing along her vision and a ringing in both ears as she faces the sky. A moment later, her eyes clear and focus on the face hovering above her, dangling dark hair, black and green eyes startlingly bright against fair skin, and an outstretched hand that she graciously accepts. She lets herself be pulled back onto her feet as her ears once again regains their ability to hear, and they fill with the voice of Daikoku-sensei announcing excitedly to the class about how their match demonstrated great sportsmanship and how beautiful and well-timed that ankle hook was, blah blah blah. The seal of reconciliation, please, ladies, Daikoku says as he turns back to them when he has quite finished his inspirational speech. Sakura is glad that Mitsuha doesn't seem to harbor much resentment as the other girl is quick to reach out and wrap her 2 fingers around her own. Quite mature for her age. Not just emotionally, too. Because no matter how drastically she downplayed her skills, so much that the effort, or the lack thereof, had almost pained her on some level, no normal fresh academy student could still have lasted as long as Sakura had let the fight drag on. Daikoku claps to redirect the class's attention back to himself before he leads them back to the building. As the other students trickle into the classroom, he stops Sakura at the doorway. I will be moved up, yes? She asks before he can say anything else yet. Yes, I have deemed it indispensable and absolutely necessary to put you under a more advanced curriculum to ensure your growth as a shinobi, he confirms as he leads her through corners and halls before stopping in front of a door. It would only impede your development if you were to stay in a class that is evidently under your skill level. And in order to serve Konoha to the fullest, right? She queries, her tone even yet eyes penetrating and knowing. War spares no one, after all. He shifts uncomfortably, and Sakura is surprised to find herself satisfied with his discomfort. It seems she hasn't yet forgiven him for how he treated her mother yesterday. Necessary or not, he could have phrased a lot of things much gentler than he had done. Ah, yes. That too. Daikoku gives her a strange, almost rueful smile before clearing his throat purposefully. Anyways, I've already talked to your new teacher, so just go straight in while I sign some forms. She nods, and is just raising a hand to knock the door when he once again clears his throat meaningfully from behind. Sakura-kun, he says when she looks over her shoulder, thick fingers tugging at his goatee. I sincerely wish you the best of luck. The frost in her gaze thaws ever so slightly before she turns back to rap her knuckles thrice against the door. Come in. The voice is low and muffled but unmistakably female. She enters. Walking away from closed doors and opening new ones to different classrooms with different classmates and different teachers soon becomes a routine she is quickly growing accustomed to. Even though it is a true testament to how fast her growing prowess is being acknowledged, she finds herself quickly becoming sick and tired of the familiarity of it all. Everything is whirling so fast and being tipped completely out of correlation. Over the past months, she has steadily advanced through different classes at an alarming rate, each one more challenging and higher level than the last, until the ineluctable moment arrived when there is no longer another class for her to transfer to. She has torn through them all in her rise for power. By the time her 3rd birthday is a week or so away, she is placed in a class that is scheduled to graduate this very month. It has only taken her within a year's time to graduate. It's honestly pretty unbelievable and surreal that all of this is seriously happening. Shinobi and civilians alike cannot wrap their minds around the fact that the authorities are actually allowing and ordering a little girl to take part in war and fight in the name of her village. A little girl who, despite being famed as the prodigious Uchiha heiress, is nevertheless still a child, barely a child. Many of them are appalled at how indisputably desperate Konoha is becoming. Oh, some whispers. How the mighty have fallen. They think she is heading straight for her impending demise, and they silently mourn for another young soul cast away. And the battle's won, but the child is lost. After much unrelenting persuasion and many shards of red flitting in the depth of dark eyes, Fugaku is finally and effectively dissuaded from his idea, now ripped from his hands and crushed to the ground and trampled in the dust, thankfully, of inviting every Uchiha clan member to celebrate both her 3rd birthday and upcoming graduation simultaneously. Sakura is wholly content and fully gratified with just the 4 of them seated around the dining table, herself, her mother, her father, and her unborn little brother. There is an ineffable and profound feeling of being surrounded by a family again that swells up within her, and the 1 or 2 tears she cannot blink back is waved off as effects from the lit candle. Well, now's a good time to make a wish, then. Mikoto chuckles from her spot, a hand resting protectively over her belly. Her stomach is now larger than ever, straining even against her pregnancy robes, and Sakura's mouth twitches as she imagines baby Itachi alive and kicking inside there. On Sakura's other side, Fugaku has his arms crossed contentedly over his broad chest. Catching her gaze, he inclines his head for her to carry out the act, lips bowed up in a rare smile. And so she laces her fingers together, bows her head over them, closes her eyes, and she wishes for a better future, a brighter world, a safer place, where children aren't found in war zones and where parents live long enough to play with grandchildren and where funerals are only for old age and a draft of cold air, or perhaps, a sudden absence of warmth, caresses her face just as her mother says, "Happy third birthday, Sakura-chan." Surprised and confused, her eyes opened to see vanishing wisps of smoke from the quenched candle fire. When had she? She had not meant to do that so soon. She hadn't finished yet. She hadn't finished making her wish. It wasn't enough. It's never enough. Equal parts, please. Fugaka hands her the plastic knife. Or you can slice yourself the largest piece, if that's what you want. After all, it's your birthday. Still addled and unsettled, her movements are sluggish and methodical. If her parents notice anything amiss, they don't say anything. Will it ever be enough? The man towering in front of her dons the standard green vest of Konoha Jonin. Aside from his clothing, a pair of beady mud-colored eyes so like a rat's, and the kunai he so nonchalantly twirls around a finger, the scar is his most prominent feature. 2.5 inches wide and twice as long, it stretches grotesquely across the entire length of his face from chin to hairline, twisting his lips into a perpetual frown and bisecting a thick eyebrow. Pale and stark against his dark skin, it naturally draws unwanted attention. Even without her Sharingan, it is easy to see through the henge. It is only self-preservation that squashes her urge to reach out and expel the image with a single finger. As much as it rakes at her pride and dignity, she is aware of how that is not the bottom line of the lesson they wish to impart on the students. She can already tell where this is all leading to. "Do you know who I am, brat?" he asks, voice coarse and gravelly and sending her eardrums vibrating uncomfortably. She recognizes the technique, a C-rank technique that can be amplified to blast eardrums into shreds, thus rendering it to B-rank with the level of chakra control and wind-natured chakra required. Yet all she can focus on is how it reminds her of dripping underground tunnels and of moonlight reflecting off pale reptilian scales. Ah, the good old days. "A jonin, sir," she replies as she trickles chakra into her ears to ward off the effects of his jutsu. "You want to fight in the war, brat?" He pulls his lips back in a sneer, revealing chipped and yellow-stained teeth that can be passed off as rows of rotten corn. Another illusion. She gives him an unimpressed look. "I want to graduate, Jonin-san." There is no hint of fear or nervousness in her tone. She has faced and annihilated enemies 10 times more dangerous than this nameless man before her. "You graduate, you fight." He makes a growling, huffing sound. It takes her a moment to realize that he's laughing. "You graduate, you stand on the battlefield. You graduate, you kill or be killed. You graduate, you stand your ground and don't fucking run away like a sniveling little coward when they come for you. You ain't gonna be no hero." Even with the distance put between them, her keen nose still catches a whiff of the reek of booze and smoke in his breath. Another trick or not, it has its desired effect, for it takes a conscious effort to keep her nose from scrunching up in distaste. A little overkill, don't you think, Jonin-san? "Ah, yes. I was aware of that." A corner of her mouth twitches. "Thank you for the reminder, nonetheless. It was very kind and thoughtful of you, Jonin-san." She is nothing but polite. Makoto would have approved, really. The man is apparently not as kind as her mother, it seems. His scar darkens to a rippling bronze as he straightens up against the wall, eyes narrowing menacingly to murky slits. Her own eyes fix on the kunai in his grasp. Faster and faster it spins until it becomes nothing more than a gleaming disk of silver. "You think that's funny? You think you're so clever, don't you?" he snarls, voice condescending and filled with cutting derision. She can sense that it's not all an act now. Out there, they don't spare children. They're gonna eat you raw and watch you bleed out. Nobody's afraid of a short, scrawny, 2-year-old little girl toddling in a diaper and armed with some pacifiers. Without so much of a warning other than a flick of his hand, the kunai sails through the air. Without any real harmful intent behind it, it will only slice off a few strands of hair or graze an ear, if she allows it to, that is. The intimidation tactic works poorly on Sakura, and she does not even blink before her hand snaps up to close around the steely hilt. "For the record," she says, voice without a single hitch, mismatched eyes unblinking. "I turned 3 years old just a little over a week ago, Jonin-san. There was even a nice cake and all. Very exciting." Silver blooms from her hand and there is a dull thud as the kunai he'd thrown at her sinks into the wall beside his head. There is nothing but complete and utter silence as she tenses for a reaction. A violent retaliation, perhaps. It is unlikely that he will hurt her, but with war now fully waged, and especially with everyone high-strung and constantly vigilant and peering over their shoulders every so often, she might have just crossed the line with her bold move. However, he surprises her when all he does is thumb his neck in a tired manner and scoff, shaking his head. And then, reaching into his vest and pulling out a piece of metal-plated cloth, he drawls, "Here's your Hittite brat." Just for old time's sake, she ties it around her head and wears it once again as a hairband. The weight is soothingly familiar as she walks out of the room in higher spirits and with a lighter heart. One step closer. The man follows her exit with thoughtful eyes, and it isn't until the door has shut that a burning sting suddenly registers at the tip of his right ear. Startled, he raises a hand to touch it, and it comes away wet and red. To her bemusement, someone else is waiting for her in her mother's place. From the wide-collared shirt she wears, it is easy to deduce that she's a member of the Uchiha clan. The gratifying delectation that had been fizzing pleasantly within ever since her graduation instantly turns to ice water and trickles down to her toes. This can only mean one thing then. "Please return home quickly, Sakura-san," the woman adjures hurriedly, arms flailing all over the place. The sight would have been rather comical if not for the severity of the situation. "Make haste. Your mother has gone into labor." "Hokage-sama," the man says as he looks up from the files held in his hands, tone imploring and almost pleading. "Do I have to?" Smoke puffs from his lips as the leader of the village draws back from his pipe to let out a hearty laugh. I should have known what your response would be. Regardless, you know the requirements for Jonin Commander. You have to take at least one genin team under your wing. You are still aspiring for that position, I hope?" Yeah? The man casts his eyes back down to the papers, skimming through them again. "You sure you really trust me with this?" "It was a hard decision," the older man admits. "I did consider many other candidates." Yet, in the end, the man quirks a skeptical eyebrow. "You still chose me. Your skills are exemplary and your intellect even more so, making you one of the most powerful shinobi Konoha has to offer. I fully believe you're the best man suited for the job. In addition, you'll need the experience one day when you're commanding an entire force instead of leading a trio of children." In response, the man only sighs mournfully, a hand rising to tug wearily at his goatee. The Third Shinobi World War, clan issues, Yoshino, deer herding, and now this. How troublesome. When Sakura smoothens a gentle palm gingerly over his head, his eyes crack open slightly to reveal dark slits before fluttering shut again, a drowsy sigh escaping through his parted mouth. His eyelashes, almost feminine in their length and thickness, cast dusky shadows across his cherubic cheeks. His head is mostly bare, but any wisps of hair she can spot appears as dark as her own and paints a stark contrast to his fair skin. "He's beautiful, isn't he?" her mother whispers, a fatigued yet blissful smile gracing her lips, one hand clasped in her husband's. "His name is Itachi, by the way. It was your father's idea." At this moment, the stern, austere lines usually composed of Fugaku's face are shallow and softened around the edges. In what seems to be an unconscious action, his thumb moves on its own accord, stroking soothing circles around the back of his wife's hand. His steady gaze is fixated on his son's dozing face, for once mellow and devoid of his usual severity. At the heartwarming sight, Sakura hides a smile behind a curtain of dark hair. "Yes, he is," she replies. "Those eyelashes are long and lush enough to make any girl green with jealousy, any Ika-san?" Mikoto huffs out a startled laugh before breaking off into a bout of coughs. "Sakura, go fetch your mother a cup of water," Fugaku behests, eyes flickering over to meet hers before returning to his infant son. Knowing the man, she had thought that the first words her father would utter to her would be something along the lines of concerning her graduation. It's a pleasant surprise, really. When she returns, she finds all three of them already asleep, Itachi in the crib, Mikoto on the bed, and Fugaku hunched over her form on his seat. Seems like there's no dinner tonight then. Quietly, she sets the glass down on a nearby table before padding over to the crib. Hovering over her little brother, she does not repress the telltale prickling in her eyes as a strange, heartfelt feeling of bone-deep protectiveness and possessiveness stirs within her. It is in this moment that she knows, without a single ounce of doubt, that if need be, she will give her life to protect this tiny, precious being before her just as readily as he'd given his. As a single child in her former life, she had never known a sibling's love, although truthfully she'd started viewing Naruto as the brother she'd never had since a very long time ago. Itachi is a calm baby, not unlike her, and she loves him all the more for it. Even though he is now nothing but a mere newborn infant, she still cannot stifle the reverence she feels for the man who had accepted disgrace in the place of honor, for the man who had made the ultimate sacrifice, for the man whose love for his brother was so great he had died with a smile on his face. And now, Sakura promises him silently, you will be loved just as tenderly, passionately, and fearlessly. You've been so brave, Otuto. She pulls a chair beside Fugaku's, quietly as to not disturb her sleeping family. Leaning against her father's side and laying her head on the mattress beside her mother's abdomen, she soon slips into a fitful slumber, awakening only once in the middle of the night when Makoto, shifting in her sleep and mumbling nonsense, slides a hand atop of her head. Sunlight seeps through the window and bathes the room in warm illumination. Sakura. Sakura, wake up. Her father's quiet yet firm voice draws her from her sleep, and she awakens with an inelegant snort. He holds a finger to his lips, motioning with his chin at her mother who is still asleep on the bed. Skin pallid, lips chapped, hair scattered disorderly, chest rising and falling with even breaths, Sakura thinks her mother has never looked more lovely in her beautifully disheveled state. You graduated, did you not? Fugaku squints at her, and her attention returns back to him. She nods. Yes, Tusama, I did. A rather awkward silence ensues as her father continues to hold her gaze unfalteringly with the long-suffering air of a man lying in wait. Of what he expects from her, though, she does not quite understand. Tusama? She trails off uncertainly. What do you want? He sighs, and Sakura gets the impression that if he were a lesser man, he would be rolling his eyes by now. If you have indeed graduated, then should you not be meeting your genin team and Jonin-sensei today? Oh. She blinks. Oh shit. Before she can scramble up and away, Fugaku halts her with a hand to her shoulder. I made breakfast. It's already on the table. Thank you, Tusama, Sakura says as she speedily hauls the chair back to its original place beside the table, and then winces when the wood scrapes abhorrently across the ground, thus earning her another reprimanding glance from her father. Take a shower too, Fugaku adds. It is still early morning. Hi, Tusama. Running a hand through her hair, she grimaces as knots entangle her fingers, wrenching painfully at her sensitive scalp. What time is it now? 6. You have an hour. Then I'll be going now. Sakura bows swiftly, nearly tripping over her feet in her haste. See you in the afternoon, Tusama. Fugaku nods, attention already reverted back to his sleeping wife and infant son, and it isn't until she set a foot across the doorway that he calls her back. Yes, Tusama? After several prolonged seconds of contemplative silence, he says, You've done good. I'm proud of you. His words strike a match of genuine happiness inside of her. To have someone she really looks up to acknowledge and accredit her efforts never fails to gratify her, especially if they are coming from a person like Fugaku who she knows barely hands out candid praises. Thank you, Tusan. She smiles at him, and doesn't waste time in finding out if the widening of his eyes is the result of her open display of affection or her change to the more informal honorific before hurrying out of the room. Refreshed after a shower and a full meal, she jogs toward the building in her usual attire of a gray-colored, wide-collared shirt with the Uchiha crest stitched brazenly on the back, and a pair of back shorts not unlike the ones she used to wear in a time that seems so long ago now, bandages wrapped to her toes from both knees down. The classroom is already clamorous and abuzz with loud, incited chattering when she walks in. The children are so wound up in their discussions and avidness that they do not even spare more than one glance at Sakura like they normally would have. I remember how excited we were too. Sakura smiles crookedly at the image of Naruto and Sasuke's memorable first kiss. While she'd been utterly enraged at the sight in the past, she'd give anything to see the two of them here now. All right, everyone. Only several heads turn when their teacher storms up to the front, a hand aglow with chakra pressed to her throat, amplifying her voice. I know you're all excited, so am I, because you're my last class before I retire, but we won't be getting anywhere if you don't quiet down this instant. As she announces the teams, Sakura can't help but notice how much younger the fresh genin are than her class in the past. Certainly not 12 or 13 like they had been, her classmates seem more around the ages of 8 to 10. No doubt she hadn't been the only one to be pushed up for showing the slightest glimpse of talent. Yamanaka Mika, Inuzuka Kaido, and Uchiha Sakura. She perks up, glancing around the room for her new teammates. Thankfully, the two names are among the few that she recognizes. Across the room, Mika gives her a shy, nervous smile before dropping her eyes to her desk. In the front, Kaido shifts around to meet her gaze before turning back just as quickly, but not before she catches the glare that passes over his face. She has a good idea why that might be, but she'll deal with it later. Well, this is rare. A team of 2 girls and a boy is always unexpected, since fewer girls sign up for the career of shinobi. Even the entirety of the Konoha 11 had consisted of teams of 2 boys and 1 girl. In this timeline, though, the issue of war can probably serve as the general explanation for the change. Room 207. While a team composed of an Uchiha, Inuzuka, and Yamanaka will serve quite splendidly as a tracker team or a group of hunter nin, it seems a little unlikely though. Because if that had been the true intention, they would have replaced her with an Aburame or Hyuga, and she'd seen quite a handful of clan members in her graduating class. Now that she's giving it some serious thoughts, a Jutsu theft squad seems more than likely. Her current team will certainly be much more effective than one she and Yuzuki Yugao had formed, because no matter how powerful a duo they'd made together, the absence of an Uchiha had made all the difference. The memory of the purple-haired and brown-eyed woman drags up images she'd rather not dwell upon. What a notorious pair they'd been, feared and revered across the 5 great shinobi countries, until they'd finally bit off more than they could chew and she'd return beaten and bloody with Yugao's head sealed in a scroll. Forcibly scattering her dark thoughts, she sweeps her eyes across the room. Mika is seated beside the window, but she doubts that the girl is actually looking at the view instead of turning her face away from her teammates. She may have the common pupilless blue eyes of the Yamanaka and her hair is only a few tints darker than Ino's platinum blonde, but her timorous poise and tremulous tone reminds her too much of Hinata, and she thinks she's already developing a soft spot for the other female in her team. Her other teammate is seated just a few seats to her right, staring unfocusedly at the desk before him with a strangely solemn air shrouded around his form. His dog paces to and fro at his feet, occasionally stopping to scratch behind an ear with a hind leg. Speaking of the boy, she is slightly confused by his uncharacteristic silence. Even for Inuzuka, Kaido is naturally boisterous and popular among his classmates with his easy grin and devil-may-care attitude. She's never talked to him before, but as an odd mixture of Kiba and Naruto, he's managed to garner her attention more than once. As always at the memories of her former life, a strong current of wistfulness and longing and if only surges through Sakura before she slices into it. Stop it, she tells herself viciously, resolutely. This is your life now. Sakura then startles to attention when the harsh screech of a chair breaks into the stillness of the room. Hey Uchiha, Kaido says as he stands up from his seat, hands planted on the table, face twisted in a scowl. His dog leaps onto the desk beside him, fur raised and bristling along his arched back. Kaido-san, Mika starts timidly, turning around. I don't think. Listen to me and listen well, the boy barks at Sakura, ignoring the other girl as she shrinks into herself again. I don't care if you're a prodigy. I don't care if you're an Uchiha. Hell, I don't even care if you're the heiress. He raises a rigid finger at her, but for all his bravado, Sakura can see his near imperceptible trembling, and the slightest hint of fear and hesitation lurking behind the defiance in his eyes. He may be a good actor, but he still has a long, long way to go if he wishes to fool someone like her. I don't care about any of that. If you expect me to bow at your feet and kiss your ass, here, Mika lets out a scandalized gasp as Sakura's eyebrows inch towards her hairline. And be at your beck and call to do your every bidding, then you're dead wrong. You got that, Uchiha? I'm not gonna be treating you any more favorably than I treat other people. My respect isn't handed out so freely. If you want to earn it, then you have to do something to deserve it. Finished with his tirade, his chest rises unevenly with heavy breaths, white-faced with anger and what might be, perhaps, fear. Fear for what she might do to rebuke and to retaliate. The mere thought of herself striking back in what will obviously be an uneven and unjust match brings a frown to her face. She has always hated bullies, and she's never wanted to appear like one. Slowly, she rises from her own chair. Kaido seems to lose a little of his fire as he falters visibly, arms tensing on the table. His dog's tail wavers, lowering, and he lets out a small whine as his ears flatten against the back of his head. Mika peers at the two of them anxiously, half rising in her seat as if meaning to interfere before things get messy. She has no need to worry, though, because Sakura has no desire to pick on little kids anytime soon. Prodigy, Uchiha, heiress, what does that all matter? They're just words. They aren't who you are, she finally says, raising her shoulders in a small shrug. I'm Sakura, just Sakura. Your teammate, Sakura. That's really all there is to it, Kaido-san. Blinking in surprise at her rather affable response, Kaido simply gawks at her for a long moment, opening and closing his mouth in an indecisive manner, perfectly resembling a gobbling goldfish, before he seems to come to a conclusion appropriate enough for his liking, nodding his head jerkily as he sinks back into his seat. In what seems to be a feeble attempt to recollect his composure, he turns to Mika, spluttering and fumbling before managing to get his words out clearly. So, something just occurred to me. He runs a hand through his sandy hair almost sheepishly. Aren't all Yamanaka supposed to be teamed up with the Nara and Akimichi? The girl colors faintly at the weight of his attention. Oh, the tradition only applies to the heir or heiress. I'm just another member of my clan, so yeah, she finishes awkwardly, her cheeks now aflame, and she rapidly turns back to the window so her hair once again shields her face from their eyes. Apparently satisfied with her answer, Kaido plops onto a desk, his previous moment of embarrassment forgotten for the time being. I hope we get someone real cool. Despite herself, even Sakura is pretty eager to greet her new teacher. She shouldn't get her hopes up, though. Because, after all, only so many shinobi can manage to match up to one like Hatake Kakashi. But as the Uchiha heiress and working in a group of clan members, she's sure that whoever is assigned to her team will be interesting. As if summoned by her thoughts, she detects Chakra approaching their door. A half-second later, she jolts up from her seat at how familiar the signature of that person is. Could it be? What is it? Kaito says just as his canine companion lifts his snout to the air with an inquiring snuff, but she is spared from answering when the door opens. The man is just as how she remembers him to be. The same deer-hide coat and uniform, the same dark hair gathered into a spiky ponytail, the same lazy grace in his slouch, the same pierced ears, and the same knives in his indecipherable eyes. Yet he is also different. His face is tanned but unblemished, smooth and unscarred, and there is no goatee protruding from his chin. She remembers that Shikamaru had once told her that it was the Third Shinobi World War that had given his father his scars. His green vest is also a shade lighter than the one he had worn in her time, indicating that he has not made Jonin commander yet. His hitayate is tied around an arm, just like Shikamaru had used to wear his. He looks so much like his son it hurts. I'm Naro Shikaku, your Jonin sensei and team leader, the man drawls, a hand held up in greetings. I know who you all are, and I'm going to assume that you know each other because if I'm wrong, that would just be sad. Kaido springs up from his desk. Hey, I've heard of you. You're the current head of the Nara clan. So I am. Shikaku tilts his head in assessment of the boy. And you're Inuzuka Kaido, Sum's nephew. He turns to Mika. Yamanaka Mika. Inoichi's mentioned you a couple of times. His gaze shifts to Sakura, and she remembers how unnerved she used to be by those two sharp, too intelligent eyes. Lastly, Uchiha Sakura. Fugaku wouldn't shut up about you during meetings. Kaido's dog makes a huffing sound at the back of his throat, and his partner crosses his arms, shaking his head at Shikaku with what looks like severe disappointment. You forgot about Ryu. Seriously, how could you ignore him just like that? Ah, my bad. Shikaku winces. Hello, Ryu? Ryu stretches his mouth in a yawn, baring his glistening teeth. He's more like Kuramaru than Akamaru, appearing more wolf than dog with his small ears and elongated snout. His pelt is a gray darker than her shirts, but his white underside is as bright as fresh snow. So, this is it. Your Genin team. Shikaku sweeps an arm in their general direction. If you're as talented as they tell me so, I'll sign you up to the Chunin exams in a few years. He's a little different from the man she remembers him to be, not as impenetrable, not as refined, and the loose stance of his hunched shoulders is more prominent than she is used to seeing. The war must have been what had hardened and sharpened him to become the man in her timeline. Something occurs to her then, and she speaks up. Shouldn't you be giving us a test to determine whether we are worthy of being officially promoted into Genin or to be sent back to the academy for further training? His expression darkens. Things change in war. A single shinobi might turn the tide of a battle. Konoha needs every helping hand. Any other questions? I have one. Mika raises a hand shyly. Yes? I was wondering if, because war is going on, and she ducks her head, teeth pulling at her bottom lip worriedly. We'll have to fight in the war too, right, Shikaka-sensei? I should have known you guys would be worried about something like this. The little test in the academy must have worked a bit too well. He chuckles for a moment before sobering up at the affronted looks his team sends him. Look, there is no way that Konoha would send fresh genin to the front lines. Don't get me wrong, sooner or later you will have to participate in the war and fight enemy nin head-on. For example, aiding in border defense or scouting out the perimeter. He smiles wryly at the relieved slump of Mika's shoulders. Rookies like you have nothing to do beyond Hai no Kuni. But I want to do more than that, Kaido says, and the intentions Sakura has to reprimand him for his naivety are vanquished the instant she looks at him. Eyes narrowed slits, elongated canines digging into his lips, red clan tattoos rippling in a savage snarl. The legacy of his clan flows true and rich in his blood. Iwa Nin took my sister. I want to fight. I want to pay them back for what they took from me. Beside him, Ryu kneads the ground restlessly with his paws as his claws sheathe and unsheathe repeatedly, clicking and grinding against the surface. Well, if you want to aid our village further, you'll have to be promoted to Chunin for that. Their teacher squares his shoulders, straightening up to his true height as he bares his teeth back at the boy, appearing surprisingly just as ferocious as any Inuzuka. And that'll be up to me to decide whether you deserve the title or not. Hey, where are you going? Kaido asks when Shikaku turns his back on them, heading back to where he came from. The man doesn't break stride as he reaches for the doorknob, throwing a casual glance over his shoulder. We're finished here, he says. Gather at the 5th training ground tomorrow morning at 8. Oh, and Shikaka turns around, throwing his arms wide out to his sides with a jagged pull to the edges of his mouth. Welcome to Team Nara. Warsan Shire. As a well-rounded, meticulous person devoted to raising his family, governing his clan, and conducting the Konoha military police force all at once, her father is also proving to be an astonishingly skillful cook. Sakura watches him with an amused light in her gaze as he flits around the kitchen, handling pans and ladles with the same easy dexterity as if he were gripping a kunai. She likes the idea of getting used to the sight of this stoic, battle-hardened man pattering around in his wife's frilly, polka-dotted apron. Tell me about your day, Fugaku says to her later, when the family of 4 settles into their seats around the table for lunch. Her baby brother curls up in their mother's lap, suckling on her milk-laden breasts. My Jonin-sensei is Naro Shikaku, Sakura answers, her chopsticks pausing in midair. I'm sure you're familiar with the name. Ah, Shikaku-kun. Mikoto beams, your father and I were in the same class as him. I trust that he'll make a splendid teacher. What do you think, Fugaku? Her husband slices into his plate of amuresu, eyelashes lowered in contemplativeness. You'll learn a lot from him, that's for sure. The Sandaime made a good decision. Tell me more about him, Sakura requests. He's a smart man, Mikoto says, stroking Itachi's head as he nestles closer against her bosom, little hands fisted in her robes. Sharp as a razor. He wants to make Jonin commander, Fugaku adds. I reckon he'll succeed too. I've known the man long enough to know that he can do anything he puts his mind to. The members of the Nara clan are proclaimed as entirely too slothful and indolent, but don't let them fool you, Sakura. The mind of a Nara is capable of anything. Remember that. I know, Sama, she replies, because she knows. Oh, she knows, because she can still remember Shikamaru's face flecked with grime, eyes gleaming with a kind of cruelty she had never before seen from him, and the way his lips had curled over his teeth as he told her, every word soaked in vindictive satisfaction, and I'll leave him there, the bastard, buried and suffocating and slowly dying with the fact that he's never going to get out of there, ever. Even now, the image has never quite faded from her mind. Tell me about the rest of your team, Mikoto says, maneuvering her arms carefully as she shifts her baby into another position. Itachi mews in protest before quieting down again when his mother murmurs soothingly down to him. My teammates are Yamanaka Mika and Inuzuka Kaido, Sakura says, before hastily adding, and Ryu, his Niken. A team of clan members, Fugaku scratches at his chin thoughtfully. Interesting formation. Kaido is the nephew of the Inuzuka's leader, Sakura supplies. Mika seems to be closely affiliated with the head of the Yamanaka clan. I'm not surprised, Fugaku nods. Both of them are tight-knit clans. The Inuzuka, especially. The Uchiha and Hyuga are really the largest and most prominent clans located in Konohagakure. You should bring them home for dinner someday, Mikoto says. Your teammates, I mean. Of course, Ka-sen. Sakura agrees. I do believe you'll find them rather likable. I want the 3 of you to tell me your abilities. Kaido, you go first. Remember, now is not the time for modesty, but I don't think we'll have that problem with you, right, boy? Wait a moment. I didn't quite get that. Kaido frowns, cocking his head to one side in a doggish manner. Beside him, Ryu mimics the motion, making an inquiring whine at the back of his throat. Can you go first? Very well, Shikaka sighs. As a Nara, I have the ability to manipulate shadows through in release. I've been told that I'm a shrewd tactician and strategist, able to rapidly analyze a great deal of information, anticipate actions, and use it to quickly formulate or reformulate highly effective plans. I also have some knowledge in the healing arts. He quirks an eyebrow at the gawking boy. That good enough for you? You know, Kaido murmurs stunned. I didn't think you were very impressive at first, but now I gotta admit that you're actually pretty cool. The man flashes a grin in response. Leaning his back against the trunk of a tree with his long legs stretched out, Sakura absent-mindedly worries that he'll fall asleep in what looks to be a very comfortable position. Even she herself is feeling particularly lackadaisical in the summer heat. I've always achieved high marks in taijutsu and ninjutsu back in the academy, but Ryu and I haven't been taught our clan's combination techniques yet. Kaito rubs a hand along his Ninken's furry flank, earning him a low huff of approval. We've already mastered the basics of tracking though. Sumoba even said that the 2 of us has got one of the finest noses she's ever seen. Shikaku nods before shifting his gaze to Sakura. My Sharingan is fully mature with 3 tomes in both eyes. While not as capable as the Byakugan, they enable me to see chakra through most obstructions. They give me an incredible clarity of perception upon activation, allowing me to read lips and copy movements. Sakura pauses. I think it would be better if I demonstrate the Sharingan's abilities in the future, Shikaka-sensei. It's quite a lot to take in. However, I would like to say that I have some skills in medical ninjutsu in addition. Well, your Kekkei Genkai does come with multiple equipment, Shikaka nods. I suppose you don't have to expand on them now, as it would definitely be too troublesome. May I see your Sharingan, though? Nodding, Sakura lets red wash over black and green. Instantly, everything is sharpened down to the smallest detail. The lint peppered over Shikaka's vest, the faintest smattering of freckles across Kaido's cheeks, the thin sheen of moisture glistening on Ryu's twitching nose, and in Mika's widened eyes, she can see her own, vivid and bright with tomos of black silhouetted starkly against crimson. The sight is arresting, because she knows that a part of her will never get used to the sight of Sharingan eyes gleaming back at her in every reflective surface. As I've come to know, Shikaka says, to gain the Sharingan, its wielder must experience a powerful emotional condition, more often than not, a traumatic event. But you are an exception, Uchiha Sakura, for you activated your Kekkei Genkai upon birth. He draws a leg back and props an elbow atop of it, leaning forward with cagey eyes fixed upon her. I want to know why you're different from your clansmen. Tell me why you're special, Sakura. What is it that makes you so peculiar? Sakura looks back at him silently, blinking red away from her eyes. It's a small comfort, though, because the mismatched black and green are no less unsettling. These are not a child's eyes, Shikaka ponders. Too sharp, too astute, too inscrutable. Who are you, Uchiha Sakura? Who are you? What are you? We are who we are for a lot of reasons, Shikaka-sensei, Sakura replies, almost as if his thoughts had rung aloud. Perhaps, one day, we shall know why that is. But for now, she turns to the other girl, I do believe it's your turn, Mika-san. For a short moment, the Yamanaka stares uneasily into her eyes as if the image of her Sharingan has not yet faded. Before speaking, the members of my clan specialize in mind-centered techniques, espionage, and interrogation, which is kinda why the majority of TNI are made up of people from my clan. We've developed sensory abilities, transferring consciousness, reading minds, and communicating telepathically. How did your clan come up with so many useful techniques? Kaido complains, throwing his arms up into the air to emphasize his displeasure. That's so unfair. Unfair? Shikaka chuckles. That's exactly what it is. Life is unfair. The world is unfair. It doesn't matter whether you're up or down. What matters is how you play the game in life. To build a strong team, you must learn to use someone else's strength as a complement to your weakness and not a threat to your power. You already come from a very notable clan, Inuzuka Kaido, Sakura says. There are those in this world who are shadowed by the plainest of ancestries behind them, yet they manage to rise from above the dust and forge legends of themselves. Talent is something everyone possesses, yet some still fail to explore and sharpen it to its full potential. If you think you're not good enough, then work harder. Let what is unfair teach and guide you. It is too easy to use your ancestry as an excuse. Do not take the lazy way, Kaido-san. Kaido turns his face away, but the ears peeking out from his hair are visibly tipped with red. I get what you mean, he mumbles. Geez, you didn't have to rip into me like that. If you're wallowing in the delusion that everything should be made fair, then you're a fool. Sakura continues, before she softens her tone. You've managed to merit praise from Samsama, and that itself is not an easy thing to achieve. Sakura-san is right, Mika says gently. If you keep on working hard, I'm sure you'll become very strong. The comeback will always be stronger than the setback, after all. At her words, Kaido turns back to face them, skin reddening even further. Each one of you has a solid stand in this team. The Sandaime put us together for a special purpose, Shikaka says. Does anyone have an idea what that might be? At first, a team of Hunter-nin seemed likely, Sakura starts. Why not, then? Kaido asks. We're certainly versatile enough to perform the wet works, given the right sort of training, of course. I think I might know. Mika looks up from where her fingers are nervously knotted in the grass, thin blades of green peeking out from between her knuckles. Kaido-san and Ryu-san can track with their noses. I will soon be trained to further expand my telepathic range. And perhaps, our most vital tool, Sakura-san's Sharingan, which has the ability to imitate movements. Are you saying, Kaido breathes excitedly, we're gonna be a Jutsu theft squad? Shikaka's affirmative smirk is all the answer they need. Between an Inuzuka's nose, the sensory of a Yamanaka, a Nara's brains, and the Sharingan of an Uchiha, Sakura's eyes gleam. There won't be any prey too big for our jaws. You forgot about Ryu, Kaido sighs. How could you ignore him just like that? While they do engage in one-on-one sparring sessions, Shikaku is more comfortable with setting up impossible team exercises and combat situations, working them doggedly until they ache down to their very bones. When not gathered for team training, they carry out their share of missions for the village. On one C rank, Sakura had been promptly horrified at the sight of the all-too-familiar brown pelt and red ribbon of Tora the Hellspawn. At the peak of his prime in his kittenhood, it seems that the escape artist is even faster than she'd last seen him in her past genin days. Fortunately, in this timeline, he has apparently not yet discovered as many hiding spots as he will eventually find through decades of experience, so it had taken a significantly less amount of time to get a hold of him. Mika had sustained pale lines from his wetted claws when she tried to soothe the savage beast in her natural benevolence. Even now, Ryu still has tufts of fur missing from his flank. If we ever have to deal with that demon cat again, Kaido had sworn vehemently, before they limped back to their respective homes to tend to their wounds and dented pride. We should just take him to my clan compound and neuter the little shit. That ought to put a stop to his tyranny. Sakura had then reminded him how that would just invoke Madame Shijimi's outrage, and he'd grudgingly dropped the plan. It becomes an acknowledged fact that Sakura is the best fighter of the trio, and inarguably the most likely to be promoted to Chunin. She herself learns a few things too. She learns that Mika, for all her meek and skittish nature, is far from the type to be pulling her blows anytime soon. The girl can really pack quite a punch when she puts her heart into it. Kaido, after a few particularly sticky trials that their team had been forced to undergo, has proven to possess a surprisingly sharp wit and intellectuality. Sakura doubts that Kiba would be able to outmatch his cousin if they'd been the same age. A few weeks after the team's formulation, Shikaku pulls her aside after a day of training. In the clearing scattered with cracked leaves, the earth fissured with rainless days and alight with the fading glow of the late afternoon, they stand before each other for a long while, legend against child, until he finally heaves a deep sigh. Curious, he remarks. What is? You have more chakra than the average child, he then shakes his head. No, not more, way more. Your chakra control is ridiculous. You're, 3 years old? You shouldn't be able to form chakra threads at your age, yet I've seen you perform even more advanced tricks during our training sessions. I do not believe even the blessed genes of the Uchiha bloodline could have given you such raw, natural power. What makes you think any of this is natural, I wonder? The corners of her lips bow up in a secretive smile. Do you really believe me to be so blessed? Special training? Shikaku presses. Complex meditation, perhaps? Why, yes. You're getting closer. Her smile widens. You'd be surprised by what a little meditation every now and then can do. That, and she herself had been astonished when she'd realized that somehow, traces of her former chakra were trickling slowly yet steadily into her body. Slowly enough for it to mingle with her current body's components, and to be remodified to the same signature as her chakra, yet steadily enough for her to enjoy utilizing an immensely upgraded version of a 3-year-old's body. She thinks it has something to do with the same reason she'd managed to retain a single green eye and most of her memory. Curious, Shikaku repeats. We are who we are for a lot of reasons, Shikaku-sensei, Sakura says. We may not have the power to choose where we come from, and perhaps we never will, but we do have the choice to decide where we go on from there. What is your dream, if I may ask? What? Shikaku blinks, a little taken aback at the rather abrupt question. Your dream, Shikaku-sensei, Sakura says patiently. Do you not wish to gain strength with each passing day? Do you not dream of living halcyon days with no troublesome matters whatsoever? Or perhaps, you aspire to be an old man with an old wife, laughing at old jokes from a wild youth? Shikaku opens his mouth and then closes it, looking at her strangely. What is yours, then? Your dream? To do whatever it takes to protect my precious people, Sakura answers without missing a beat. That is my Nindo. Shikaku is silent for a long moment, and she can almost hear his thoughts, clinking and whistling through that remarkable brain of his. That's something dangerous you've got there, Sakura. A fool's dream, that is. What a naive, dewy-eyed little girl. How terribly delightful it'd be to break her, to trod that veridity into the very dirt. And so, his next words surprise her. I didn't think I would, but I actually quite like you, Shikaku admits. And you must know that I'm not usually wrong. He tilts his head in consideration, the afternoon light golden on the burnished metal of his hittite. You're an enigmatic child, Sakura. She knows that she is not who she had used to be. She is reminded of the painful fact every time she gazes into a reflective surface, every time a strand of dark hair falls into her vision, every time she returns to a house that is not quite her home and to parents whom she does not remember having such dark hair and even darker eyes. Two sides war within her, wrestling and grappling for dominance. One side deems her too ungrateful. You have been given another chance at life, the voice hisses, disapproving and disappointed. The future depends on what you do today. And Sakura is grateful, so very grateful. It has taken losing her life once to rediscover the abysmal depth of appreciation she has for capricious, simple little things. Yet, the other shamelessly screams and wails for all that she's lost and all that she wants back. You're not dead, but not alive either, the voice cries out, empty and hollow and aching. Just another ghost with the heart you stole. She does not move slowly over the past, for it's all compressed in one bright flash. All of the years, pictures with their edges frayed, a box of secrets, and a kind of sorrowful joy. Because as cruel as the world she'd lived in had been, it had also been breathtakingly and heartbreakingly beautiful. But she knows that she is not who she had been. She is not who she had used to be, and it has made all the difference. She has a past, and she cannot live there anymore. She needs to let go. Some sliver of pride reels away from this newfound vulnerability, for it's been so very long since she'd last let cracks spindle over the near impenetrable walls she'd slavishly erected around herself. And look at where that had gotten her. Look at what her vulnerability had costed her. She has caged so much anguish and anger inside of her, and she's grasped the agony of it all and held it to her chest even as it festered and rotted and withered away in its wasted little space. Something has ripped and torn within her. It has changed her into something she'd never meant to be. It has transformed her into a person whom she does not recognize. And she's afraid that she does not know how to let go, because she can't remember what it's like to not feel broken. She's trying, though. She's trying. Sometimes, Shikaki gives them days for resting after dreadfully hellacious training sessions, and Sakura likes to spend her free time with her baby brother. Ever since he'd started toddling around on those chubby little legs, Itachi dedicates a large portion of his time waddling after her like an imprinted duckling. Whenever presented with the opportunity, he'd wrap his short arms around her legs until she bends to pick him up, hoisting him onto her shoulders. One of her favorite moments is toddling with him in the Uchiha front yard. Unsurprisingly, Itachi is already displaying glimpses of his prodigious talent with his unsteady yet unrelenting steps. Of course, there are a few times when he wobbles and topples over, but instead of steadying him when his knees buckle, she lets him tumble down and spill into a pile of tangled limbs onto her lap. After he regains his breath, he owlishly peers up at her with strips of grass in his mussed hair, cheeks smudged with sweat and dirt, little hands clenched in the hem of her shirt, and joyous giggles bubble forth from his mouth. The hardest step you will ever take, she tells him tenderly, reaching out with a thumb to rub away a stain of spittle from the edge of his mouth, is to blindly trust in who you are. Skra, Itachi pipes, pressing the pad of a finger against her cheek with another giggle. Sakura, she says, biting off each word with clean crispness. Sakura. Skra, he gurgles in reply. Skra. The sight of her baby brother clapping his little hands with the exquisite happiness only babies seem able to exude renders her speechless with an ineffably profound emotion. The next thing she knows, she is doubling up with a deep-bellied kind of laughter, pressing a shaking hand against the ridges of her teeth to smother the sounds with no effect. She can't help it. She can't seem to stop. It's been so long since the last time she's felt this whimsical jubilation, and even longer since she's decided to act upon it. When Mikoto hears the voices of her children ascend into a fit of laughter, she curiously pokes her head out through an open window. Her breath catches in her throat when she sees her usually unmoved and stoical daughter hunched over her baby son, eyes brimming with tears of mirth, entire frame racked with jovial wheezing. What mischief are you two up to? Mikoto walks up towards them, eyes twinkling. Watch this, Sakura tells the woman, wiping a hand across her dampened cheeks before turning back to Itachi. Sakura. This time, he is even quicker to respond, Skra. And as their mother throws her head back to laugh in delight, Sakura trails a hand over the softness of her baby brother's face, the frailness of his ears. Mine, she thinks with joyful wonder. Mine. I repeat myself again, observe and do not interfere at any circumstances, unless the situation truly calls for it, the Sandaime Hokage says, taking a pinch of tobacco between his fingertips and sprinkling it into the chamber of his pipe. The west border is extremely dangerous. This will be your first assigned B rank. If things take a turn for the worse, you will very likely find yourself dealing with a hazardous A rank mission. Please do stop looking so excited, Inuzuka-kun. It will not be an enjoyable experience, I assure you. War never is, Sakura murmurs. The time has finally come. I'm not excited, Kaido protests. I'm just eager. So, Mika says, fidgeting with an anxious and unsure expression on her face. We just stand on the sidelines and watch people fight? Just observe? That's one way to phrase it, Shikaku replies. In other words, we'll be scouting the perimeter and hovering over the edges of the battlefield, but our fellow shinobi will be the ones doing the actual fighting. This will be your first confrontation with war, so watch closely. This is going to be a lesson you will cannot forget. Trust me, the experience will come in handy in the future. How does that make this mission a B rank if we're not actively participating? Kaido asks. We're just going to be watching people fight, that's all. What do you mean, that's all? Sakura says, quirking a judgmental eyebrow. You are a shinobi, are you not? You should be able to understand why genin teams are sent on missions like ours in times of war. We're certainly not the first and only team to be assigned to this mission, you know. Oh, really? Kaido gripes, but she can tell that he does not contain any real heat. He's been her teammate long enough to become accustomed to her occasional patronizing and know-it-all manner. Do enlighten me, O wise Uchiha. Please go right on. Sakura fixes him with a level gaze, sparking slightly with impatience. There is a saying among the warriors of the Uchiha clan, victorious shinobi win first and then go to war, while defeated shinobi go to war first and then seek to win. Kaido stares at her incredulously, that's gibberish. Supreme Excellency coheres of breaking the enemy's resistance without outright fighting, Sakura continues. Deception is the key to warfare. Hence, when we are about to attack, we must appear unstable. When employing our forces, we must seem indolent. When we are close, we must make the enemies believe that we are far away, and when far away, we must make them believe us to be near. Her mismatched eyes are unseeing as they gain a faraway visage. In the midst of chaos, there is also opportunity. One may know how to conquer without being able to do so, so watch closely, Kaido. Watch very closely, for there are things that cannot be accomplished without first being observed. The ensuing silence stretches for such a long period of time that Sakura starts to feel the telltale warmth of embarrassment prickling along the back of her neck, because damn it, I've gone too far again, haven't I? Gathering the last remaining scraps of her dignity, she's about to tactfully divert the subject when Kaido speaks up. Wow, I don't think you've ever spoken so much before. You know, you sounded very hip and cool when you said all that, Kaido drawls, looking far too amused and even more confused. But really, all I asked for was an explanation to why this mission is a B rank when it should be a C rank. Well, you posed a question and I offered an answer, Sakura bristles, more flustered than irritated. And haven't you been listening? Sharpen your mind as you may grind a kunai on a whetstone. Why do you think Shikaka-sensei is such a valuable shinobi? Certainly not because of his delightful and alluring disposition, I'm sure. Hey, Shikaka grunts, hands shoved deep into his pockets. That was uncalled for, Sakura. Don't worry, Shikaka-sensei, Mika comforts him, patting his arm. You are a very sweet man, truly. Eat lunch first. You'll probably return tonight or at tomorrow dawn, but you may hand in your reports in a week from now. You have 2 hours to prepare, the Hokage dismisses them. Brace yourselves. After the door shuts behind them, Sarutobi Hiruzen takes a long haul from his pipe. What a strange child, he contemplates aloud, before turning to the lone ANBU operative stationed in the corner of his office. How mystifying, don't you think? Yes, Hiruzen-sensei, the ANBU replies, voice slightly muffled by the porcelain mask. But you know what they always say, there's no exquisite beauty without some strangeness in the proportion. Hiruzen shoots him a wary look. I do hope you're not thinking what I think you're thinking, Jiraiya. What do you take me for, you dirty old man? The ANBU yelps indignantly. I am so not into toddlers. If you must know, that little oddball of a girl was the one who wouldn't stop sneaking weird little glances at me. Jiraiya. That ANBU in the corner back there had got to be Jiraiya, Sakura thinks absent-mindedly as the team moves swiftly away from the village. She must be correct if the familiar feel of his chakra is anything to go by, and alright, there's really no way of mistaking that magnificent mane of his. Honestly, what use are masks if the operatives don't even try to cover up their hair? Inoichiji-san told me that teams like ours are extremely rare, Mika says, leaping between one branch and the next, bringing Sakura out from her thoughts. That's true. The first handfuls of jutsu theft squads emerged in the Warring States period from the Uchiha clan, Shikaku explains. One reason it's been kept quiet is mainly because we don't talk about it, as doing so would just reduce its effectiveness. The other is that such teams are only established in times of war. I was actually quite surprised when the Hokage informed me of my genin team's purpose. Surprised? Kaido asks. Why? Because after the treaty between the Uchiha and the Senju transpired, resulting in the founding of Konohagakure, jutsu theft missions have always been assigned to teams of ANBU that consists of at least one Uchiha. Sakura answers, my father once commented that a genin team operating so prematurely as a jutsu theft squad is something practically unheard of. Well, it's not like we've been doing concrete jutsu theft-centered missions, anyways, Kaido frowns. Come to think of it, we've been practicing those horrible exercises all the damn time, yet we haven't done any actual jutsu theft at all. Sakura shoots him a deadpan look, don't be dense. We're still genin. Those horrible exercises you speak of may very well save your life someday, Shikaka adds. Mika speaks up before Kaido can retort. I think Sakura-chan means that only when we've been promoted to Chunin can we be granted permission to perform real jutsu theft, Kaido-kun. It's just a little incredible that we've been informed of our team's special purpose at such an early stage. And it's a very, very special purpose too. When you become Chunin, you'll have to directly fight enemy Nin on the center of the warpath. Shikaka says our task will be to bait out techniques while Sakura watches, hidden from sight. Because honestly, are you really going to be running at a Uchiha with your best techniques in tow when the Sharingan is activated? At Kaido's pointed look, Shikaka quickly continues, and I'm not referring to your clan's combat combination techniques with your Niken partners, because even though the Sharingan may learn the workings of such a honed technique, it does not always enable them to use it. The secrets of a clan are kept very well hidden from any outsiders, after all. About that, Kaido says, glancing sideways at Sakura. I still don't quite get how your flashy eyes work. I mean, yeah, I understand that it copies movements and jutsus and stuff, but the question is, how? What's so amazing about the Sharingan is that it doesn't just let me copy hand signs, Sakura answers. It also allows me to copy any techniques using hand signs. In some occasions, a few hand signs are left out, but that's easily solved with some simple calculations. Another problem that will probably surface is that I might not have enough chakra or control required for a particular technique. Ah, and that's where the rest of team comes in, Kaido says excitedly, nodding with dawning understanding. Together, we can strip the technique layer by layer, figure out what exactly makes it tick, learn to master it to take back to Konoha, and then we'll be revered as heroes forever. Now we're making sense. That's what made Sarutobi Hiruzen so valuable and formidable in the Second Shinobi World War, Shikaka says. He could figure out a S-rank ninjutsu technique, and was able to master it, and even teach his comrades a superior version in the span of a single day. Hence the name the professor, Mika echoes, blue eyes wide with stars-struck wonder. Hokage-sama is amazing. Ergo, don't be fooled by his kindly, grandfatherly appearance and mannerisms, for he is even more renowned as the Shinobi no Kami, Shikaka says. The hat isn't handed out so freely, after all, he cuts himself off abruptly, canting his head to one side. After a short moment, he twitches his fingers in a hand signal, motioning for the team to hold their positions. While Sakura is not a skilled sensor type like Uzumaki Karen, she's long ago learned how to utilize her abilities well enough to scour her surroundings. Her skin tingles as her senses awash with over 4 dozen chakra signatures, flickering erratically yet steadily. And if she sends chakra to her ears and strains some more, she can hear the unmistakable clash of weapons, distant yelling, and the impending onslaught of pounding footsteps. There is fighting frontwards, Sakura reports. They appear to be heading for Konoha, but something seems to be preventing them from doing so. It is likely that a group of enemy Nin have somehow managed to sneak past our front defenses, and our comrades are now staving them off. You're right, Kaido nods. There are sounds of battle ahead, and so much blood. He wrinkles his nose up in distaste, and beside him, Ryu paws uncomfortably at his snout. We're not even close to the border yet, Mika's pale eyebrows draw downwards in a worried frown. They've made surprisingly deep progress into our territory before getting detected. Glancing around, Sakura sees that her teammate's statement is indeed correct. A sitting duck between Iwa and Konoha, Kusagakure's terrain is marked by characteristics of each. Having plunged deep into Kusa area in the past, she'd been fascinated by the woods of colossal mushrooms and bamboos. It is a land of rolling hills snaked with slender rivers and steep ravines, covered with trees but not exactly forested. So far, she's only spotted a scant few clumps of bamboos scattered here and there, and the mushrooms she's seen are evidently native only to Konoha. It should have been another 2 hours before they arrive at the west border where the largest battles take place, yet the fighting is already close. We're short of shinobi at the moment, Shikaku shakes his head solemnly. We can't have every ninja lingering outside of Konoha in case the village suddenly becomes the heartland of attack. Even though enemy Nin cannot possibly know the formula to breaking Konoha's protective dome, the barrier jutsu cannot hold forever. Someone should have notified the village by now, though, Kaido says. But it's likely that this has only just happened. Should we go aid them or send for more backup? Mika, scout ahead, Shikaku orders. There's a thrush perched 5 branches above from us. I'll shadowbind it so it won't take off. See it? Ah, a little more to the right, yes, that's it, there's the little fella. Kaito moves over to Mika, supporting her body when she goes limp as her consciousness is transferred into the small bird. She launches herself away from the branch, nearly toppling downwards in the middle of her flight before regaining her balance with several forceful flaps of her wings. It must be difficult adjusting to a non-human body, so Sakura thinks she deserves some credit, because even Ino hadn't progressed so far in such a short matter of time. Do you think she'll be alright? Kaito asks, looking up at the dimming sky. The sun is setting below the horizon, painting the heavens with dying streaks of orange and purple. Mika is a talented kunoichi who is currently inhabiting the body of a tiny woodland bird, Sakura replies. I dare say she will return to us in one whole piece. Yeah, I know, Kaito sighs. I guess I just needed a little reassurance from someone else. Something in his voice makes her turn her head around to look at him, and as she watches, he brushes Mika's pale locks away from her face and tucks a stray strand of hair behind an ear. There is an uncharacteristic tenderness in his expression that she is all too familiar with, and it makes her a little uncomfortable to witness the gesture. Not wanting to intrude on a moment obviously meant for privacy, she turns her attention to Shikaku. The man is currently leaning against a tree, eyes closed as he twirls thick stripes of shadows about his feet. Sensing her observation, he makes a tendril of shadows slither towards her, taking the form of a giant squirrel the size of a small house cat. She lets the shadow squirrel scamper up onto her shoulder, nearly squeaking in surprise when Shikaku makes it prod its cold nose against her neck. They do not have to wait very long before a soft squawk and a rustle of leaves signify their teammates' return. Mika stirs in Kaito's arms, shifting her body as she raises her head. The thrush trills in alarm before flapping furiously away in a cloud of feathers. Kaito quickly removes his hand from her hair, gazing down at her innocently. That was way faster than I'd expected, Shikaku remarks. Unfortunately, that must mean that the enemy is closer than we'd originally thought them to be. I've always disliked using this technique on animals, Mika mumbles to herself, raising 2 fingers to gingerly rub over her temples. That wriggly little worm back there looked alarmingly appetizing. The mission, Kaito prompts. What did you see? Oh, right, oh, it's terrible, Mika exclaims. Sakura-chan, you were right. 24 or so Iwanin have managed to intrude across the boundary between Kusa and Konoha, and our fellow shinobi are trying to chase them off, and even worse news is that they've brought the fighting straight to us, Sakura finishes grimly even as the ground rumbles ominously beneath the soles of their shoes. Give us your word, Shikaku-sensei. Shikaku studies them silently with the cool-headedness he is so often praised for, and when he does speak, his voice is without a single quiver. Konoha needs our assistance, their teacher says. As the Jonin sensei of my genin team, I hereby declare the original mission extricated. Until I say otherwise, we will defend our homeland until every one of those enemy nin are chased out. I only ask you to choose your battles wisely and to never put down your guard, not even for a split second, and please, for the love of Kami, stay alive. Hi, sensei. It's time. When the first person dashes from the trees with 24 more shinobi hot on his heels, IWA insignia glinting proudly on each of their hitaiate, Sakura streaks forward and unleashes a horde of vehement flames upon the enemies. A few of them topple to the ground, screaming and writhing as the stench of burnt flesh stings the air, while some of those who are able to react fast enough vaults over the deadly blazes, only to be brutally shredded apart by a bellow of Getsuga and a tornado of teeth and claws. This is for my sister, you bastards! Kaito roars, drenched in the tattered remains of his downed opponents, before he flings himself back into the fray again. Ryu leaps after him with a hair-raising howl, unsheathed claws slashing mercilessly. When Sakura sees several Iwanin turning against their comrades who lets out startled cries, she knows that Mika is busy at work. To your right, Sakura-chan. She hears her teammate's voice shout in her mind before she ducks down, an axe sweeping over her head. I'll try to keep an eye on all of you. Coldness brushes past her legs as Shikaku's shadows slither and spike in every direction like black lightning, ensnaring and impaling enemies faster than she can even blink. It's wonderful to be able to witness the man's marvelous battle prowess once again. For Konoha, a voice in her mind shrieks over and over again with increasing volume until the words nearly tear themselves from her lips. For Konoha! For Konoha! Above them, the final rays of the fading sun are fully swallowed, plunging the world into another night of moonlit darkness. As Sakura fells enemy nin left and right, her heart slams against her ribcage so hard that it aches, her lungs are strung tight with suppressed breaths, and she can feel every vein and every fiber, every bone and every nerve, all awake and buzzing as if her entire body is crackling with hot electricity. Only a few years ago, she had been all alone, left behind to wander and stifle through the charred ruins of a crumbling world, to ponder her shame and despair in seclusion. She had no purpose to continue dragging on a pointless life, no incentive to persist fighting a battle she would never be able to win. Not for the first time, she wonders if she'd been the one to end her own sorry life. Had she really been twisted to such a coward? Had there really been no other way out? Now though, fighting side by side with her team, she finds that she doesn't much care. She's been given another chance, and she'd be damned if she doesn't use it well. It gives her strength to have somebody to fight for, because while she may not always be able to fight for herself, for others, she can kill. The urge to fight and defend has awakened something purely primal and ancient within her. There is something gruesomely satisfying and familiar in the way torn flesh and splintered bones slides wetly over her skin. It's been such a long time since she'd last fought so freely. Her ears are plugged with the roaring of blood within, her heart beats a steady tattoo in her chest, and raw chakra undulates smoothly through her body as relentlessly as endless waves crashing ashore. Her teammate's voice is like a startling douse of ice water. Kaido-kun! Mika's shriek explodes in all their minds, and white spots dance behind her eyelids from its sheer volume. Behind you! Half turning from the collapsed form of the opponent he just defeated, Kaido can only watch with wide eyes as the Chikuto soars towards him at a speed too fast for him to dodge or deflect, only for the weapon to be intervened by a blur of gray and white. Ryu yelps as he crashes to the ground, legs spasming in agony, and a pool of crimson rapidly fans out from below his body. Moonlight catches onto the steel blade protruding from his flank. Ryu! Kaido cries. Caught in horror at the sight of his fallen Niken, he does not notice another figure lunging towards him. Sakura clears the clearing in less than a heartbeat. She rams her body into his side and sends him crashing away, flipping a kunai up just in time to parry the enemy's sword. Over the clash of steel, she locks eyes with a man, boy, who looks only a few years her senior. With a flex of her muscles and a rush of chakra to her arms, he goes skidding several feet away with a surprised grunt. He had clearly not expected so much strength from a baby-faced assassin. "Why, you're just a child," the boy exclaims, lowering his sword until the tip drags along the ground. There is a hesitance and unsureness etched across his face that breaks her heart to see, because unlike him, she has no such conservations. Her resolve has long ago been hardened, her heart bitterly steeled. "And so are you," she says sadly, looking him in the eye because he deserves that much, at the very least, before appearing behind him. His skull seems softer than mushed rice as she drives the kunai into the back of his head. He crumples to the ground, twitching for another few seconds before going limp under her iron grip, and only then does she let go. His pooling blood is sickeningly bright against the moonlit earth, but it's nothing she hasn't seen before. "Sakura!" She reels around at Kaido's panicked shout. She finds him crouched beside a patch of dense foliage, Ryu's unmoving body cradled in his arms. Narrowing her gaze, she's relieved to see the barely visible rise and fall of the dog's blood-stained flank. "Do something," he begs as she kneels down next to him. "Help him, please." Wordlessly, she gently takes Ryu's body from his hold and lays him onto the ground. Glowing hands rapidly rove over his injuries, and she frowns at what she discovers. "Guard us," she instructs Kaido. "Will he be okay?" her teammate inquires. Face twisted with worry and fear for his dog, he's never appeared so close to tears. "That depends on how well you fend off the enemy Nin," she replies, already turning back to her patient. "It doesn't take her too long to find a sturdy stick in the undergrowth. Bite down when the pain comes," she says to Ryu, and the dog only whimpers back in reply. Wrapping one hand around the hilt of the short Chikuto protruding from his side, she raises the other above the damage, letting wispy trails of green trickle into the seeping wound. When she starts pulling at the blade, both Ryu's forelegs and hind legs spasm violently again, tail thrashing and thumping wildly against the ground. The piece of wood cracks and splintered as he crunches down on it, and a shrill whine escapes through his clenched teeth. "Easy, Ryu, easy," Sakura soothes. "It'll be over soon. You're going to be alright." The blade drops to the ground silently, slicked with blood, and she finishes up on his skin and flesh after knitting back together his impaired internal damage. "How is he?" Kaido drops down beside her. At the look she shoots him, he hastily continues, "The area's clear. We've taken care of the enemies. Shikaka-sensei ordered us to retreat." "Speaking of sensei, where is he now?" Sakura asks. "The last time I saw him was only a few minutes ago." Kaido threads his fingers gently through Ryu's matted fur, avoiding the freshly healed wound. "He said to get back together with our team and wait for him. I think he went to talk with some of our shinobi, because we were just finishing up on sweeping through the area together. Where is Mika? I haven't seen her in a while." In reply, Sakura looks up at the dark sky a few moments before a figure plunges from the trees, and then Mika lands down beside them, looking bruised and painfully cut up. Mika! Kaido exclaims with heavy relief. I was wondering where you were. Sakura stretches out a hand to cup over Mika's swollen shut eye, glowing a faint green for a mere few seconds before pulling away, leaving the eye as good as new. Thank you, Sakura-chan. Mika gives her a smile that appears rather wobbly and almost pained. Not even a second later, her expression completely crumples and she emits a strange gurgling sound from her throat. I am so sorry for acting like this, she chokes out. It's just that I was so scared. Ashamed of her outburst, she buries her face in her hands, wet sniffles escaping through the gaps between her fingers every so often. Just as Sakura opens her mouth to comfort the girl, Kaido beats her to it. I was scared too, Kaido says fiercely. Fuck, I was scared shitless. I thought I was going to die. I thought we were all going to die. And I was scared for you guys too. Kami, he cuts himself off, taking in a whistling breath down his throat. So, his voice is barely a whisper. This is war, huh? His eyes are frighteningly empty, his face haggard, clothes mottled with blood. Mika is huddled beside him, knees locked together and drawn up to her chest, and even in the dark, Sakura can see how badly the arms wrapped around her legs are shaking. As she watches, Kaido lifts a bruised arm to circle around Mika's waist, and the girl leans closer into his embrace. Sakura's heart breaks for them. She mourns for the loss of their innocence, for the darkness that has now undoubtedly crawled within, and will slowly fester and grow with every passing day until it is inevitably deformed into something black and vile. You weren't scared, Kaido suddenly says. It is not a question, but a self-affirmed statement, and it takes her a moment to realize that she's the one he's talking to when he holds her gaze. No, Sakura replies honestly. No, I wasn't. How did you do it? Mika whispers, can you teach me how to be brave too? Sakura almost laughs outright even as she feels her heart shatter into a million tiny pieces. It's funny how she's proven wrong every time she thinks her wound cannot be opened wider anymore. Hadn't she already become numb to everything decades ago? After all, you can't break a heart that's already broken and worn out. Isn't that how things are supposed to work? Oh, how she misses the little girl whose dreams had no barriers, and who believed in a world where anything was possible with a heart that was full and unbroken. War is a soul-shattering experience for anyone and everyone, no matter how hardened they become, she instead murmurs aloud. That was not bravery you saw from me. I was merely carrying out my duty, eliminating the enemy. It never occurred to me that there was a greater need to protect myself. But yes, the two of you were scared, Sakura continues. Utterly terrified, even. Scared shitless. Yet, despite it all, despite your fear, you still did it anyway, didn't you? You kept on fighting even though you were aware of the fact that you could drop dead any second, sure that the next person you knocked down would be your last. Yes, the two of you were scared. You'd be an idiot if you weren't. And you wouldn't be brave either. Wait, the space between Kaido's eyebrows creases. Doesn't that make you an idiot because you weren't scared? A breath of laughter whooshes from her mouth. Perhaps. Isn't there anything that makes you scared? Mika asks, rubbing away the last of her tears. At that, Sakura smiles. Of course. I'd be an idiot if there wasn't. Shikaku arrives soon after that, shrewd eyes roving almost frantically over their bodies for drastic injuries. Only when they repeatedly reassure him of their verdure and wholesomeness does he set them on the direct path back to the village. They don't speak during the journey, each of them opting to sort out the chaos in their heads in stilted silence. It is unspoken but painfully tacit that their mission had veered onto a very different path than it was supposed to have taken. Sakura tries not to imagine what the Sandame's reaction will be when he reads their reports. It is approaching dawn by the time they enter the village, the sky shell pink and faintly gold, and the moon only a slip of silver in the distance. Shikaku hurries them over to the hospital for a final checkup before sending them back to their respective homes. Carrying an exhausted Ryu in his arms, Kaido offers Mika to walk her to the Yamanaka clan compound, to which she accepts graciously with a shy smile. That is enough cue for Sakura to let them alone, and after bidding each other goodbye, she heads back to her own house. She is surprised to find the lights dimly lit when she steps over the doorstep. The sound of running water and clattering of plates travel out to the hallway. Who could be up this early already? Come into the dining room, Sakura-chan, her mother calls. Curiously, she pads across the hall and into the room. Her mouth salivates when the heady aroma of warm food washes over her, and her full attention instantly hones in on the plate of tempura like an eagle to a white-tailed bunny rabbit. Her mother props her hip against the table, wiping her hands on her apron. Okiri, Sakura-chan. She smiles warmly, but it fades slightly when her eyes linger on her daughter's blood-soaked and battered appearance. Tadaima, Ka-sen, Sakura greets her, making a move to drag the plate over. Aha, Mikoto pulls the plate lightning fast out of her reach, waggling a finger in her face. You know the drill. I've already laid your pajamas out on the counter. I don't want you getting any of that filth on my furniture. All that blood and grime comes off, you hear me? Sakura makes another grab at her salvation, but her mother simply raises it higher above her head, raising an eyebrow meaningfully. Sakura gazes at her food for a long, mournful moment before finally heaving a sigh. Yes, Ka-san. She emerges from the bathroom in record time, hair barely dried and still slicked against her scalp, water dribbling thin pads down her neck. Ignoring Mikoto's stare of exasperation, she plops onto her chair and starts shoveling food into her mouth without a single pause. Don't inhale your food like that, Fugaka says as he enters the room, expression mildly disgusted. You'll just bring it all back up if you continue at that rate. Look at her, Mikoto murmurs to him when he walks over to the counter, filling himself a cup of tea. She's ravenous, our poor girl. Wasn't it supposed to be only some sort of espionage mission? She was covered in blood when she came in, you know. Sakura barely hears them. She can't get the image of Kaido's haunted eyes and Mika's tear-streaked face out of her mind, or how Shikako had appeared 10 years older when he returned to them, and the slick softness of the boy's brains when she'd driven a kunai into his head, and maybe, someday, she'll finally learn to love herself and stop being sorry for the things that make her who she is, but not today. Not today. Now that the adrenaline and excitement of the battle have all but faded away, she realizes just how tired she is really feeling. There is a lethargy that tugs at her bones and weighs down her limbs. No matter how much experience she has gained, her physical body is still not quite used to getting so much action all in one day. She does not have a clue to when she'd fallen asleep during her meal. One moment, she is hurling food down her throat at the dining table. The next, she blinks awake to being carried upstairs to her room in her father's arms, the rhythmic swaying of his steps working like a sedative to pull her deeper into an abyss of darkness. Tusan, Sakura mumbles as he stoops down to lay her onto her bed. HN? He brushes damp hair away from her face, frowning when water drips from the black strands and dampens her pillow. I'm so tired, the words manage to push through her barely parted lips. I know, Sakura. You can tell us all about the mission after you've gotten some rest, Fugaka says as he tucks the blanket under her chin. You'll need it, because Itachi wouldn't stop asking for his big sister all day long. You have no idea how much of a hassle it was making him go to bed. He's usually very well behaved, you know. You can bet he'll be hogging all your time tomorrow for sure. So, for now, sleep. If she were any less fatigued, she would have informed him that no amount of sleep will do any good if it's the soul that is tired. She's an ancient soul caged in a young body, and she's so tired. Instead, seeing as she is, she obeys him dutifully, already swiftly slipping into a dream she will not likely be able to remember in the next morning. She has accepted the fact that, sometimes, all she can do is lie in bed and hope to fall asleep before she falls apart. The last thing she registers is the callous yet gentle fingers of her father combing through her hair, lulling her into a fitful sleep. Let me rephrase all of that. A B-rank war observance mission assigned by the Hokage ended up as an A rank in which you and your team joined Konoha's border patrols to drive out Iwanine intruders. Her father scratches idly at his chin, an action she's come to perceive as his contemplative, and sometimes, agitated pose. It appears to be more of the latter in this case. That's about what I said, Tusan. Sakura nods, raising the brink of her bowl of miso soup to her lips. What a mess, Fugaka sighs, shaking his head. Your first relatively high-ranking mission and you managed to get yourself tangled in war. A mission gone awry. It's a miracle your whole team managed to survive, even with Shikako in lead. Don't you think it's bizarre the way strange things orchestrate themselves around you, Sakura-chan? Mikoto asks, her tone suspiciously light, and her eyes carefully avoiding her daughter's. How so? Sakura blinks, tilting her head to one side, the perfect picture of innocence. Her mother doesn't get a chance to reply before a shrill voice wails from a distant room. He wouldn't stop crying when you didn't return home last night, Mikoto says, laying her chopsticks down on her plate. He put up quite a fuss when I tried to tuck him into bed, and after I fed him breakfast this morning, he just dozed off immediately, so I placed him back into the crib. Stay here, Ka-san. Sakura pats her mother's arm. I'll go to him. You do that, her mother smiles, sinking back into her zabuton. He'll sure be happy to see his big sister. Sakura walks down the hallway with an uncharacteristic spring in her steps. She'd been too tired to muster up any leftover energy after her last meal to do anything else other than sleep, so she's eager to see him again now that she's gotten her share of rest. Placed beside their parents' bed and dappled with shafts of sunlight cutting in through the windows, his crib almost seems to be rocking slightly from left to right with the force of his cries. She walks up to the crib and places a hand on its wooden railings to steady the motion. "You've got a set of lungs on you," Sakura remarks as she peers down at him. "I never would have thought so." The wailing stutters to an abrupt halt. Mouth halfway open, her baby brother's eyes widen to the size of saucers, staring olishly up at her for a long moment as if he can't believe she's actually here, before a toothless grin stretches across his cherubic cheeks. "Nay!" Itachi exclaims gleefully, tangling the blanket around his chubby little legs as he squirms to his feet. "Nay! Sakura! Nay!" "Did you miss me?" Sakura asks playfully as he clambers onto her arms, tiny hands grabbing fistfuls of her shirt and letting out a little sigh of contentment, stuffing his face into the crook of her neck. She pulls back a few inches to wipe away the tears and snot staining his face, unable to suppress a smile when he leans into her palm. "Yeah, I know." She pecks him lightly on the nose, smile widening when he giggles. "I miss you too, Otoro. Let's go eat lunch, shall we?" When Sakura enters the dining room with a still giggling Itachi in her arms, Fugaku rises from the table to help place his son into the high toddler chair. Here, Mikoto presses a small bowl of mush sweet rice into her hands. "You can feed him. You've seen me do it enough times to know how to do so. Oh, look at how happy he is. Look at him, Fugaku." Fugaku's single grunt somehow manages to express his amusement. A commendable feat, Sakura thinks. He'll need to start getting used to her absence soon. Some missions in the future may take her away for several months. "Genin missions won't take months," Mikoto says. "Weeks, probably, but not months. And when the time does come for her to be sent away for months, Itachi will be old enough to refrain himself from making too big a fuss." "After we finish lunch, I'll bring you along to meet my Genin team," Sakura tells Itachi as she dips a spoonful of soft food into his open mouth. "Now, won't that be exciting?" "Your team is already resuming training right after the unexpected A-rank mission?" Mikoto inquires, surprised. "I thought Shikako-kun would have given you guys more time to rest after that particular ordeal." "Time is something we cannot afford. The war is not subsiding anytime soon." Fugaku turns to look at his daughter. "You are a prodigy, Sakura, but do not be so naive to think that your talent will outlast the time and effort you put into your training. Hard work will take you up the stairs, whereas talent will only bring you to the doorstep. Remember, talent is a gift which everyone possesses. Yet some fail to explore and sharpen it to its prime," Sakura finishes, barely refraining from rolling her eyes heavenwards. "I know, Tusan. It's one of the first lessons you ever taught me. Besides," she turns to her mother, "my team won't be actually training today. Shikaka-sensei just wants us to gather so that he go through the proper conditions for appropriate mission reports." "Alright then." Mikoto piles empty plates atop each other, making her way around the table and to the kitchen. "Don't forget to burp Itachi-chan after he finishes his lunch," she calls over her shoulder. "And it's bright and scorching outside, so make sure the two of you don't get sunburnt." "Hi, Ka-sen," Sakura replies, slipping another spoonful of food between her baby brother's lips. "Yes, Kaido, I am absolutely sure that 3 sentences do not exactly meet the requirements. Mika, while your effort is appreciated, I doubt that the administrators would find the experience of reading through a 5-page essay enjoyable." Mika raises her head to gaze forlornly at her paper, the hand holding her pen faltering uncertainly over the words she'd just written, while Kaido crumples his paper in a fist and throws it away with a frustrated growl. Yipping, Ryu chases after the ball of paper and clamps his teeth over it, before trotting back to his partner and proudly depositing it at his feet. The boy sighs drearily at his Ninken's gift, and then with a casual swipe of his hand, sends it rolling away to join a nearby pile of rumpled papers. "Tell me, Ryu, how many drafts have I written already?" The dog raises a hind leg to scratch thoughtfully at his ears, and then lets out an affirmative bark. 5. "Yes, thank you. 5. 5 drafts. 5 scrolls wasted." Kaido turns to Shikaku. "What do you want from me, man?" The man in question does not grant him a response, opting to remain silent as he slumps snugly against his tree, long legs stretched out luxuriously, head drooped so low his chin touches his vest. His students think he might be asleep, but they're not quite sure. They can never tell with Narao Shikaku. Kaido growls, "You were awake and talking just a few moments ago. Are you even paying attention to me?" A hand rises to rub at the back of his neck, moving so sluggishly as if the mere motion causes him a whole lot of effort, and then Shikaka cracks open an eyelid to fix the boy with an apathetic gaze. "HM?" "That's it." Kaido throws his arms up in the air, nearly hitting Mika in the face. I'm done. No more. You guys look absolutely miserable, a voice comments from behind the two. They glance over their shoulders to see the fourth member of their team standing a few feet away, dressed in a pair of fresh clothes and cradling a mysterious bundle in her arms. Sakura-chan. Mika greets her happily. You're late, Kaido accuses, but she can tell that he's relieved to be taking a brief break from his writing. And what's that you're holding? Food? Ecstatic to see you, too, Sakura replies smoothly as she takes several steps closer to them, deliberately not answering his inquiry. What's gotten you all riled up? It's either too detailed or not detailed enough, Kaido grouches, expression sour. I've always gotten high marks in the academy and mock mission reports, but apparently they aren't up to dear sensei's standards. You're a genin now, Shikaku drawls, his eyelids sliding shut again. But if you'd like to go back to being an ABCdarian, that could certainly be arranged. Troublesome, but as long as it takes you off my hands, I can bear with it. Maybe you can try comparing your previous drafts to your newest one and, decide which sentences need to be expanded on or taken out. Sensing an impending argument, Mika quickly speaks up before Kaido can retort, easily more helpful than their napping teacher. That might just work, Kaido muses aloud. Invigorated by Mika's words of encouragement, Ryu nudges wads of crinkled paper towards Kaido with his snout, and the boy swipes a new scroll from the stacked pile before pressing his pen to the paper again. Well, Sakura says as he scribbles away. I may have brought something that might help a little, or, more specifically, someone. Lowering herself onto the floor and shifting her arms for them to get a clear view, she reveals a mop of dark hair and sheets of fair skin. Itachi lets out a delightful chirp as he pokes his head out of his coverings, taking a whiff of fresh, open air, before shyly tucking his face back towards his big sister's chest when he catches sight of her teammates who must be intimidating strangers to him. It's a Kaido's nose scrunches up in confusion and mild disappointment. Baby. Man, I thought it was food. Oh, Mika breathes, blue eyes wide with wonder. Oh, my Kami. Oh, he's adorable. Sakura unties the cloth strapped over her shoulders and her brother, and then settles down on both knees to place Itachi on the grass-covered ground. The toddler stares curiously around at the unfamiliar location. Their mother has shown him around the village already, but they never stopped at a specific place for a long period of time other than the playground or at Kushina's home. I know you've told us this before, Mika's words are directed at Sakura, but her eyes are fixated on Itachi who'd clambered to his hands and knees, making tiny sounds of relish when the dirt squishes satisfying between his tiny fingers. But it seems I've forgotten. What's his name, again? Itami? Itaku? Itachi, Sakura answers, lips quirking when her brother perks up, hearing his name, and waddles towards her like an eager duckling. Uchiha Itachi. I wish I had a sibling, too, Mika sighs wistfully, watching Itachi fling himself into his sister's lap, wrapping his short arms around her neck in a warm embrace. May I hold him? Please? Sakura's hesitance must have shown on her face, for Mika hastily continues, I'll be gentle, I promise. No, it's not that, Sakura is quick to reassure her. He's just a little shy, as you can see. Strangers scare him. She looks down at Itachi, murmuring, Mika is my teammate. There's no need for you to be frightened of her, Ototo. Go on, don't be afraid. Comforted by her soothing words, Itachi withdraws slowly from Sakura and steals a timid glance at Mika. The Yamanaka is holding herself as still as possible, trying her best not to do anything to scare him off as he gathers the courage to walk towards her. Hi, the toddler squeaks. I'm Itachi. Uchiha Itachi. While Mika does not drop her calm composure, her teammates know for a fact that, internally, she has already melted into a sticky pile of goo for the moment. Oh wow, she gasps. He can already talk? Only a few phrases, Sakura replies. How old is he? Shikaku asks, straightening from his position against the tree and scooting closer to his genin team. Not even 1 year old, but close, Sakura replies, unable to suppress a rush of pride. Impressive, isn't he? Nodding fervently in agreement, Mika goes back to cooing gibberish at the baby boy. Sakura grins when Itachi starts making quirky hand gestures, apparently using movements to express the words he cannot speak, and thus, of course, rendering Mika into another internal fit over his sheer cuteness. It is then Sakura notices the strange look Kaido is directing at her. Something you want to say? She asks him. He shakes his head, averting his eyes from hers. Nothing. Predictably, unable to handle so much excitement, Itachi takes one stumbling step backwards and falls on his rear. Ryu swiftly plods towards the fallen toddler in alarm, nudging his snout against the toddler's side worriedly. With his help, Itachi wobbly clambers back onto his feet, little hands gripping the dog's thick scruff for balance. The baby gasps in surprise when Ryu swipes his tongue across his face in an affectionate lick, before burying his face into the Ninken's furry flank with a squeal of delight. Fine, Kaido admits. He's pretty cute. Why can't you be as cute as your baby brother Sakura? Most likely the same reason you can't be as cute as your Niken, Sakura retorts without missing a beat. With a shrill and faux gasp, Kaido rolls across the ground until he reaches Itachi and Ryu. Resting on his side, he clutches a hand against his chest in mock pain. Oh, he groans. Your sister wounds me so, Uchiha Hiko. I'm hurt. I really am. Sakura watches in fond exasperation as her teammates bursts into raucous laughter, letting out a soft chuckle herself when Itachi joins in with his squeaky chortles. Needless to say, the actual objective for the gathering of their team is mindlessly trampled and laid flat beneath their feet for the rest of the training session. Well, Sakura knows that while Kaido and Mika have completely forgotten about it, Shikaka definitely remembers, although he's probably too lazy to bring the topic back up again. Drained by the excitement of their rollicking, Itachi soon wanders back into her arms and dozes off. When the street lamps light up one by one, signaling evening's arrival, he dismisses them, melting into a puddle of shadows and leaving his students to walk back to their respective houses. They bid their farewells to Mika when they reach her clan compound first, who can't help but sneak one last adoring glance at Itachi, before continuing down the road. When it is Kaido's turn to go through a separate route, he speaks up when they can part ways. Hey, Sakura. At his words, Sakura halts, turning back to face him. He pauses. Yes, Kaido? Sakura says patiently. She knows what he is trying to convey, and she's truly quite touched that the boy is making such an effort. I just wanted to thank you, he blurts out, and then surprising her even further, bows deeply. Thank you for saving Ryu. I don't think he would have made it out alive if you hadn't been there to heal him. And for pushing me out of the way. I would be dead if not for that, too. There's no need to thank me, she replies. That's what teammates are for. You're right. He straightens, face flushed and eyes trained on somewhere to the left side of her head. Yeah, you're right. Well then. She nods, already backing away. See you tomorrow. You know, you're not half as bad as I thought you'd be, he blurts out. Not bad at all, really. Oh? Her eyebrows inch towards her hairline. They'd never addressed such personal matters between the two of them before. I may have crafted an image of the Uchiha clan in my head, he admits. An incorrect one, I've realized recently. Well, I'm glad you've had your little revelation, she smirks, tone teasing. The Uchiha will come and take you away if you misbehave, his clansmen had used to warn him and his sister, back in the times when she hadn't been buried 3 feet underground and he'd still been too naive to believe otherwise. The following nights, they would always be too frightened to glance out at the windows for fear of catching sight of glowing hues of vibrant red. He'd grown up being fed chilling tales about the iron, predatory faces of the Sharingan wielders, arrogant and unyielding eyes of warriors who had the authority by unquestioned inheritance. But Uchiha Sakura is different, and he now knows this for sure. Back in the academy, he cannot remember one instance in which she had purposely flaunted her prodigious talent. Granted, there had been a few instances in which he'd been quite annoyed by her almost frantic hand-raising during class whenever the teacher asked questions. Thinking of it now, that had been the only occasion he'd seen her exhibit any emotion other than cool apathy. Teacher's pet, he remembers muttering under his breath. Then again, he'd mostly been relieved that with Sakura answering every question flawlessly, the teacher would unlikely call on him. After nearly a year of being on the same team, Kaido has learned under that cold, indifferent exterior, there is an actual human soul that genuinely cares for her loved ones. It had been startling to witness the interactions between her and her baby brother, astonishing how she'd exuded a warmth that had never appeared around them, and the revelation had been absolutely staggering that this usually aloof, untouchable little girl could exhibit such measure of love. Ever since the moment Sakura had barreled into him and knocked him out of harm's way, and then hunched over the frail, bleeding body of his dog, saving Ryu who he believed would surely die from being impaled by the blade of sharp steel, Kaido will never again doubt Sakura's comradeship. See ya, Sakura, he grins. Good night, Kaido. Don't forget to write your report. After the mission, Shikaka trains them even more demandingly than ever. He teaches them how to create snares so complex that they can even entrap high-level jonin. He gives them lessons on etiquette, but is quick to abandon the subject when all 3 of them reassures him of their familiarity with the topic. Because even Kaido, a member of the rowdiest clan in the village, has been brought up to know how to properly behave in a mission should the situation ever call for it. At one point, Shikaku had even ordered Sakura to produce an area of leaping flames, to which she'd obediently complied, before Shikaku had proceeded to demonstrate how to walk through the searing heat, untouched and armed with chakra only. Mika and Kaido had watched in reverent awe, before blanching drastically when Shikaku had demanded his students to do the same. Kaido had kicked Sakura subtly in the shin, for she'd given her best shot at creating the fiercest fire she was capable of bringing out. She'd begrudgingly let him get away with it, only because the looks of suffering on her teammates' faces were so great it had managed to invoke the slightest stirrings of guilt along with amusement from her. "Remind me to bring you guys over to the Nara clan compound someday soon," Shikaku says once, watching them spar over the rippling surface of a lake. "Yoshino's also been pestering me about meeting you three. Why someone would choose to marry you of all people, I have no idea." Now, Kaido," their teacher drawls. "Don't be sulky just because you've lost to Sakura for the 4th time in a row now." "Ugh. Don't remind me." Mika's eyes gleamed triumphantly as her wires snapped tautly around Sakura's struggling form, only to widen when a poof of smoke fades away to reveal a moss-covered log. "Of course," she thinks dejectedly, before something cold and sharp presses up against the column of her throat. Sakura-chan would never fall for such easy tricks. "What's taking him so long?" Kaido wonders aloud, wiping the sweat dampening his forehead with the back of his hand, as Sakura lowers her kunai and steps away from her opponent, signaling the end of their final sparring match. They've already finished their sparring sessions for the morning, yet their teacher has still not arrived to the training grounds after a whole hour. Shikaku is a Nara first and foremost. But he is also the head of his clan, the man chosen to be the next Jonin commander, a hailed genius tactician, and teacher to 3 students, and so it does not come as a surprise that he actually takes shinobi training very seriously. It's not like him to be so late. He's probably running an errand, Sakura decides. I can show you several chakra control exercises until he arrives. A simpler one, please, Kaido says wryly. I think we've had enough of fire walking and underwater breathing for the past several months to last us an entire lifetime. In the end, they settle on rotating a handful of gravel around their arms with chakra threads attached. Another hour stumbles by before their teacher finally turns up to the scene. You're late. Kaido points an accusing finger at his approaching figure. My apologies, the man's eyes crease in a smile. I had to veer off from my regular path to pick up an important document at the Hokage's tower. I see you guys have been training decently on your own. I appreciate the dedication, my dear students. There is something off about that smile, his sly tone, and the way his hands are hidden behind his back that makes Sakura suspicious. A lifetime of deceit has guaranteed paranoia to simmer and wake with every living second. Spit it out, Shikaku-sensei, she urges him. Stop beating around the bush. Ah, so impatient, he chuckles, bringing his arms out to the front for them to see the object he's holding in his hands. Very well then. See for yourselves. Kaido snatches the paper away, eyes scanning the printed words rapidly, his teammates reading over his shoulders. There is a collective pause before the boy shatters it with a piercing howl, the Chunin exams. You're nominating us for the Chunin exams? He latches onto Shikaku's arm, nearly bowling the man over with his enthusiasm. You're the best, Shikaku-sensei. The best. So soon? Mika says uncertainly. Hasn't it only been 1 year? Aren't you excited? Kaido turns towards her, placing a hand on either side of her shoulders. Don't you want to be promoted to Chunin? Of course I want to become a Chunin, Mika cries, cheeks flushing at her uncharacteristically loud outburst, and more likely because of her close proximity with the boy. But don't you think it's a little too soon? Like I said, it's only been 1 year. We've only ever been on 2 B-rank missions. Too soon? Little Uchiha here graduated the academy in less than a year. Kaido guffaws, and Sakura lets the boy cuff her affectionately over the head, and then she scowls half-heartedly, and swats his hand away before he can muss her hair too badly. She's a prodigy, Mika protests half-heartedly, but it's obvious that her resolve is weakening. Try as she might to deny and repress, there is an unmistakable glint of alacrity in her blue eyes that just cannot be dimmed. Listen, Mika. Shikaku reaches out and rests a hand atop her head. I never would have signed the 3 of you up to the exams if I deemed any of you the slightest bit unready. But you are, Mika. You are ready. All 3 of you are ready. Well, we've only got a little more than 2 weeks to prepare, Kaido says. Train us as mercilessly as you can, Shikaku-sensei. I know you want to. Don't hold back anymore. Don't listen to me when I beg for a break or anything of the sort. It's nothing too exciting, Shikaku says. It won't be like what I'm sure you're imagining, Kaido. You might even be a little disappointed, I'm afraid. His words do nothing to qualm the Inuzuka's fiery incitement. We're gonna ace this, Team Nara. Kaito's ear-splitting grin reveals his elongated canines as he slings both arms around the shoulders of his teammates, slouching quite a bit to reach Sakura's height. Chunin exams, here we come. The air is still stifling and damp from last evening's rain, causing her wide-collared shirt to flatten uncomfortably against her skin as Shikaka leads his 3 students into the arena, double doors swinging shut behind them. Sakura sighs faintly through her nose as she peers around. The place is as exactly as she remembers it to be. Well, before it had crumbled down to mere ruins when Kanehigakure had been razed to the ground, that is. This is kinda disappointing, Kaito says as he looks around with a confused frown. Ryu raises his snout and sniffs the air suspiciously, pawing at the stone ground. Where is everyone? Where are the flashing lights? Where is the thundering applause to signify our awesome entrance? For Sakura, it's strange how empty the arena is without other shinobi from different villages to participate. Before the end of the Third Shinobi War, villages originally held their own individual exams. Only after the war did exams open to all villages start being held biannually, with villages taking turns for hosting responsibilities. Getting a bit ahead of yourself, don't you think? This is only the first stage, Sakura remarks, before murmuring from the corner of her mouth, 3 o'clock. The team with 2 girls. 2 brunettes and a blonde. Said team is currently eyeing them, or, more specifically, Sakura. She detects a mixture of curiosity and wariness directed at her, but does not turn her head to face them, choosing instead to observe them from the corner of an eye. They don't smell particularly interesting except for one female, Kaito says lowly, not even shifting to try stealing a glance at them. She has a charred smell about her. Something like burnt wood, like cinders and ashes, yes, that's it. She's probably fire-natured or lightning-natured or both. Let's hope you're the one who gets to face her, Sakura. I've seen them around, Mika whispers, inclining her head to one side so a sheet of pale hair shields her moving lips. They graduated 1 year before us. The girl in the middle with brown hair tied up in a ponytail, the one Kaito mentioned, is quite talented, so I've heard. Her specialty is ninjutsu. As to be expected of a Yamanaka, Shikaka says approvingly. You've shown a great deal of promise in intel gathering, Mika. This skill will be useful when we embark on jutsu theft missions. The girl's blush darkens even further when Kaito pulls her in for a fist bump. You two are doing just as well, Shikaka says to his other students. Sim was right, your nose is among the best in your clan, Kaito. Sakura, your eyes are as keen as ever even without the Sharingan activated. Keep it up. More participants start to trickle into the arena as the designated time approaches. When the last team arrives, a Chunin moves over to the closed double doors to stand guard. The Hokage hasn't come to watch, probably buried up to his nose in paperwork, as he attends to the troubling matters of war in the closure of his office. 6 teams? 18 genin, Sakura notes silently as they make their way up to the balcony. Any useful tips? Kaito nudges Shikaku. Can you tell us anything about this exam? As I've told you, this exam will be quite different from the ones we used to hold, Shikaka says. In fact, there will only be 2 stages. Neither one are very creative, if I do say so myself. Only 2? Mika asks. Why? The war is closing in on us, Shikaka sighs. That's all I can tell you. Don't question me further, I've already disclosed enough information as it is. Besides, it looks like the first stage of the exams is about to start. The Jonin who steps up to the center of the arena declares himself as their proctor. Please come down when I call your name, he tells them. You will then engage in a one-on-one match, and the victors will proceed to the next and final stage. The first match is nothing special. At the beginning, the girl and boy appears to be evenly matched, for the both of them are heavy hitters with unimpressive speed, until the girl missteps and takes a brutal punch to her temple that knocks her out. The remaining genin watches with rising apprehension for their own impending matches as medics rush forward to carry the girl away in a stretcher. That was a little boring, Kaito mutters to his teammates. Make sure to put up a good show when it's our turn, yeah? We gotta remind them that Team Nara ain't something they can mess with. Second match, Hyuga Natsu, the proctor announces from below, and Yamanaka Mika. Yeah. Go get her, Mika. Kaito envelopes her in a hug, but Mika appears too worried and stricken to even blush. Hyuga? She stutters out, barely registering Shikaku's encouraging words or Rhea head bump. Use the water nature techniques that Shikaka-sensei taught you, Sakura says to her. Try to avoid an open taijutsu match unless you have something special planned. Play to your strengths, Mika. Don't hold back. Hi, Mika replies, gathering herself together, and then gives her team a nervous smile before walking down the stairs to the center of the arena where her opponent is already waiting at. "You've always been a gentle soul, Yamanaka-san. I have no desire to rough you up too bad," Natsu says by way of greeting. "You will not last long in this war. You are not like Uchiha-san who was born to do this. The shinobi lifestyle does not suit you. The real world out there will devour you alive. Forfeit now, and you will be doing yourself a favor." "Born to do this? Me?" Sakura almost laughs aloud. If only Natsu knew that only decades and decades of blood, sweat, and tears had shaped her to become who she is today. Now, it is her heritage and covert duty to the world that demands it of her. And most importantly, if only Natsu knew the true extent of Mika's prowess. Do you know what I think?" Mika asks, before lifting her chin, blue eyes narrowed and alight with pale fire. "I think you're afraid to face me. I think you want me to quit beforehand only because you know that I will win. I think I'm correct, aren't I, Hyuga-san?" Natsu appears taken aback at the other girl's words. She clearly does not remember Mika being so outspoken and bold back in their academy days. "If that is what you believe, very well," Natsu finally replies. "I will not hold back. Do not say I did not warn you." On Sakura's right, Kaido parodies the Hyuga's words in falsetto, voice low enough to not be heard by the other teams, yet loud enough to draw forth identical smirks from both Sakura and Shikaku. When Natsu rushes forward, palms raised, Mika swiftly backflips towards the end of the arena until she reaches the wall, and in a show of speed, kicks off against the concrete surface. Natsu's eyes widen as Mika shoots towards her at an alarming speed before she, too, quickens her pace to meet the other girl head-on. At the last second, Mika's hands flash through seals, releasing a violent torrent of water that propels herself higher into the air. Once again caught by surprise at Mika's drastic improvement from her academy days, Natsu barely manages to dance away from the jutsu, skidding to a halt and pivoting on her heel. The Hyuga stares thoughtfully as Mika lands back down to the ground. "You've improved," Natsu says. "But so have I." Even from the balcony, the spectators can see the sudden bulge of veins around Natsu's eyes. She activated her Byakugan without any hand seals, Sakura thinks to herself, faintly impressed. Not sure about Niji, but Hinata certainly couldn't have done that at her age. Mika's teammates watch tensely as she creates a small army of clones that rush towards the Hyuga. "This amateur technique is useless against me," Natsu calls as she effortlessly ducks away from illusionary strikes, not even bothering to raise a single hand. "My Byakugan sees through everything." Natsu has just dispelled the clones with a sharp pulse of her own chakra when an open-toed shinobi shoe flies at her from out of nowhere. She snags it with one hand, her expression baffled as she asks, "What is the meaning of this, Yamanaka-san?" Mika is currently hanging from the ceiling with the bottom of her feet charged with chakra. One would have to crane their head up to keep an eye on the girl, but with her Byakugan, Natsu does not even need to twitch a muscle to get a good look at her opponent. For her own part, Sakura stifles a snort of laughter. She knows what is going to happen and she can't wait to see Natsu bear the brunt of it. Nothing personal, really. Not a moment later, the shoe disappears in a poof of smoke, a result of one of the most finely executed kawarimi Sakura has ever seen from a genin, only to be replaced by a girl with pale hair, held at the collar of her shirt by her opponent. Mika's fist flies out, catching a startled Natsu in the jaw, and the Hyuga is sent sprawling away with a grunt. "Nice trick, Mika!" Kaido hollers. Creative, Natsu spits a glob of blood-laced spittle to the ground, rising to her feet, if not a little ineffective. Mika frowns. She'd hoped that the kick would have been forceful enough to knock her opponent out. She blanches as Natsu rushes towards her again, hands raised in the style of juken. She's not ready to engage in a taijutsu fight with a Hyuga just yet, so hopefully ninjutsu will keep her busy, for now, anyway. The tendrils of water that she sends towards Natsu are a water-style variation of one of the Naruto's shadow manipulation techniques. As swift-footed as Natsu has proven to be, even she cannot escape unscathed. Though it may not look like much, every streak of the water is as sharp as any blade. Her chakra reserves aren't as plentiful as mine or Kaido's, Sakura thinks, becoming slightly worried when several tendrils of water waver in the air, slowing their assault. Whatever she's planning, she better carry it out before her ninjutsu usage exhausts her. Almost as if Mika has heard her thoughts, she releases her jutsu and snatches a kunai from her pouch, lunging forward to exchange quick blows with her opponent. Although she manages to cut Natsu in a few places, the true superior between the two girls becomes clear to the spectators as the taijutsu fight progresses. Mika lets out a hoarse cry when she doesn't twist out of the way fast enough, and her mistake costs her the loss of a right arm when Natsu slams her palm against a limb with what must be enough force to shut down multiple tenketsu. The Hyuga smoothly follows up with another slam of her palm directly against Mika's chest, and her opponent drops to the floor. "You're finished, Mika-san," Natsu says between panting breaths, and kicks Mika's kunai out of her hand. "I underestimated you, I admit. I did not know you could fare so well in taijutsu even as a member of the Yamanaka. P put in a team with an Inuzuka and Uchiha. It was a GI given fact that I had to improve my taijutsu in order to support my teammates with the best of my abilities." Mika breaks off with a hacking cough. "You may have improved," Natsu replies, the hand she's placed on the other girl's shoulder tightening its grip as she prepares for the final blow. "But you made the wrong decision when you decided to get into a taijutsu match with the Hyuga." "And no, it was the correct one," Mika wheezes. "Because it allowed me to do this." Using the proximity that the Hyuga has unknowingly benefited her with, Mika's uninjured hand flies up to close around Natsu's wrist, and then both girls abruptly slumps to the ground with twin gasps. It is a long, terse moment before Natsu's still form twitches. Pushing herself up onto one knee, she raises a shaking arm into the air. "I, Hyuga Natsu, forfeit this match." "Is your decision final, Hyuga Natsu?" the Jonin asks. "Yes, Natsu," Mika answers. "Winner, Yamanaka Mika," the Jonin announces, and the girl collapses to the ground again barely a moment later. While Kaito leans over the railing in alarm, Sakura is torn between pride and a wave of nostalgia of what could have been so strong it almost sweeps her off her feet. Shikaku leaps down to retrieve Mika, dismissing the medics with his presence, and bringing his student back up to the balcony. "Let her rest," he tells his other two students as he props her carefully against the wall. "Don't disturb her, Kaito. Don't waste your chakra to heal her, Sakura. For now, focus on your upcoming exams. Mika will soon wake up on her own." He takes out a small container of pills and slips one between her lips. "Chakra pills made from Nara deer antlers," he explains. "Cool. Can I have one too?" Kaito asks. "Nope," Shikaku answers. "That would be considered cheating since your match hasn't come up yet." Kaito draws back with a relenting nod, fixing his eyes on the third match that is just starting. True to their teacher's words, Mika comes to during the middle of the third match. "How are you feeling?" Kaito crouches down beside her when he notices her eyes flutter open. "Did Mika rasps, struggling to straighten up. "Did I win?" Sakura lowers herself onto one knee on her other side, placing a soothing hand on one shoulder. "Yes, you did," she reassures her teammate. "You got her good." She feels more than sees Mika relax underneath her palm with a tired yet pleased smile forming on her lips. There is a commotion below as one genin sends the other crashing to the floor, rendering him unconscious, before the proctor announces her victor. The girl walks back up to the stairs to join her team, while the boy is carried away on a stretcher. Fourth match, Tameda Hiroki, the proctor then booms, and Uchiha Sakura. Sakura stands up from her crouched position, eyes sweeping over the people in the balcony. The boy announces himself by stepping up to the railing and raising an arm. "I forfeit the match," he declares indifferently. For a moment, faint regret paints itself over his face, before he nods in self-affirmation and crosses his arms over his chest. "Is your decision final, Tameda Hiroki?" the proctor asks him. "Why?" "What?" yells the boy beside him, presumably his teammate. "Are you kidding me? You've been working so hard for this." "I don't care." Even from the distance, Sakura can see the muscles in his jaw twitch as he speaks through gritted teeth. "I don't want to go up against her. It's not like you weren't there when Sensei told us of the things she's done on missions. I'd rather stay a genin than die for an exam." A hand lands on her shoulder, and she looks back to see Shikaku, his expression indecipherable. Absently, she realizes that she has involuntarily stiffened up at Hiroki's words. "Hey!" Kaito barks from beside her. "Do you even know what you're saying? We're all Konohanin here." Sakura would never go as far as to kill her nakama. Sakura just barely refrains from jerking violently out of Shikaku's grip, for Kaito's word has jarred something she has took care to bury deep down within her. She still remembers Anko's agonized screaming as flame-like markings had spread across her body, how her comrade had arched violently, and then slumped against her when Sakura had driven the blade into her heart, and then, finally, the graze of her lips against her ear as she'd used her last breath to thank Sakura. "It's not your fault," Kakashi had told her again and again, gripping her shoulders and forcing her eyes to meet his. She was no longer herself. You freed her. But even now, Sakura has never quite forgiven herself, and for a split second, she thinks she can feel her friend's warm blood once again dribble down her neck and pool into the dip of her collarbones, searing her skin, and then a voice pulls her back into her surroundings. I'm not going to humiliate myself, Hiroki is saying. Oh, you're kidding me, his teammate groans, rolling his eyes. You may want to reconsider, Hiroki-san, Sakura speaks up, more to turn her thoughts away from her past than for his sake. This isn't about winning. This isn't about defeating your opponent. Success does not guarantee a successful promotion, nor does failure prelude it. The purpose of all this is to prove to your superiors that you possess the necessary skills you need to rightfully earn the promotion. What does it all matter if I can't even pass the first round? Hiroki scoffs. It matters a great deal when you apply for the exams the next time they come by. Every match is recorded and written down for the examiners to review. Even if you may lose this round, you will be attending the next Chunin exams when they are again hosted, no? At her words, the boy's expression turns pensive, before a scowl overtakes his features. I can't stand your know-it-all attitude anymore, Hiroki mutters under his breath, but Sakura is constantly cycling chakra to all her senses in order to build up her reserves and train her precision, so she catches his words nevertheless. She feels her lips curl slightly when he raises his voice. Proctor, I revoke my words. Hiroki makes his way back to the center of the arena, and she uses the time to study him. Her opponent seems to be at least skilled in kenjutsu, if the naginata strapped to his hip is of any indication. But if she has it her way, he will not even get the chance to use it. As soon as the proctor signals the start of the match with a slash of his hand, she instantly shins forward. She intends to end this as soon as possible. Chakra scalpels. Be careful not to cause permanent harm. She does not even give him enough time to pinpoint her position before her fist smashes into the center of his face. His vision washes white with blinding pain, and he stumbles backwards, right hand flashing to the hilt of his naginata. Not a moment later, as if a string has been snipped, his fingers involuntarily slackens and his arm falls back down to his side. What? Something snakes around his ankle, and his whole world swirls before his eyes as his back painfully collides against the ground, a whoosh of air expelling from his lungs. She's too fast. Bracing a hand against the cold stone floor, he prepares to push himself back onto his feet, before completely freezing in his spot when something cold and sharp slides under his chin and fits snugly against his throat. Yield, a voice whispers into his ear. He tries sneaking his left hand down to his other naginata, but discovers to his chagrin that they won't obey him no matter how hard and desperately he strains. He then tries to kick out, but his legs only flop lifelessly below him, knees clanging uselessly against the ground. What have you done? In his horror, he jerks around.